Did you get my email back about moving the meeting?
Yeah, I'm leaving on the 16th, so I'm I'll suspend my support from the screen. I'll say it's an emergency.
Okay. Good, wonderful morning. The Finance Committee meeting will be called to order at 10:01 a.m. on May 2nd, 2022. All members are present, that being Alderwoman Finlayson on my right and Alderwoman O'Neill on my left. And we also have Alderwoman Pindell Charles and Alderman Dwan Gay in attendance. At this time, could I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of the agenda as written.
Do I have a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the, let me just get the date of the April 27th, 2022 meeting minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All righty.
Aye.
All in favor, okay, aye. So right now, we're going to go straight into discussions with the supplementary appropriation before us, which is SA 23-22. This shouldn't take too long. I know we have a full house today. We have a hard copy of it.
It's attached to the agenda.
It's not attached.
Not in Granicus. Okay, so what this is something we don't have an electronic copy of. So we have,
Madam Chair, could we ask Katie to send us a copy? It's not attached in Granicus.
and to just some background for this is in reference to the Arts and Public Places Committee. This, if they do not use their funding from a previous fiscal year, it's carried over. However, I understand that this was not carried over. Director Dickinson can speak to it as we wait for the document.
So we're asking to add to the appropriations for AIPPC fund, $51,776. That's the amount of money they had left over at the end of FY21, which we should have reappropriated during the last budget process, but did not. So they have asked us to appropriate the whole amount for them. I don't know that they'll need it for the year, but at least they'll have it this year to spend if they want to have other activities and don't have enough in their current year budget.
Any questions?
I have.
Oh, Alderwoman Finlayson?
Yes, Ms. Dickinson, the 51,000 is left over from
FY21 and prior years, unspent, money that the city had allocated to them, put it as an appropriation in their fund and did not spend it. They did not
Okay,
spend
my
it.
question is, that amount accumulated from previous years also? Or
Correct.
is that just what was left over from 2021?
So they carry forward funding every year, and we would have given them $40,000 in FY21. So the fact that they had 51,000 left means that some of that's left over from FY20.
Okay, so that was my question. So second question, how much did they use in '22? Or have they used?
We can look that up. We just did a report for her last week, at the end of last week, to show her total FY22 expenses to date, but I don't have my computer completely booted right now.
So in FY22, and this was as of the end of April, actual expenses are $45,628.
So how much is left for '22?
So we appropriated 67.5 before the fund transfer, the fund balance, sorry, appropriation. So right now they have available 18,921.
Okay, which This 51 will be added to once we approve this estimate.
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so asking that another way, what is the total in the mayor's budget right now for arts and public places?
For 22,
No, for fiscal year 2023, the budget.
for 23, we would have anticipated 120,000 plus what do we, and plus their anticipated leftover from this year, and I don't know that number.
Okay, so we have a
So
projection.
right now in the mayor's budget, we have 223,900.
223,900.
900.
And that's 120 from the, and they have that much left over?
All right. Well,
I do have a question, a follow-up question. Did we agree, or at least we had a discussion about the funding that they're now getting from the state? And the fact that we will not be allocating that additional $40,000?
Yes, so the 120,000 that we're anticipating for next year is all made up of the money that the state mandated that we carve out for that group, from the occupancy tax.
Okay, but it is state funding.
It's not state funding, it's our occupancy tax that we collect from short-term rentals. Normally, it would go into the general fund, but that carve-out meant that we had to allocate some of our general fund revenues to this fund. And we also had a state bill that went through for the housing, for affordable housing. So those two pieces now come out of our general fund revenue and move over into these other funds.
Okay, thank you.
all right. Can I entertain any motion?
Madam Chair, I'll move a favorable recommendation for SA 2322.
I'll
Right.
second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, thank you very much. All right, good morning. We have three presentations today. We had a carryover from last week of the city manager and the mayor's office, so we're pretty jam-packed here in a 3-hour window of time, so this is what I will ask. The community benefits will be first, followed by a combined presentation of the city manager's office with community services, and then lastly followed by the mayor's office. I want you to plan for an hour each, okay? So everyone look at their watch. The committee will ask questions, but because of the time constraint, I'm only going to limit my colleagues on the council to two questions or within 5 minutes, whatever comes first, okay? All right, so with that, we'll have the grant presentation first. We have it up on the screen as well as a hard copy. And who will be making the presentation? Erin? Ms. Lee? Oh, you have to go on mic, green light, and
Madam Chair, could we invite the committee up to the table, please?
Yes, I was just going to say it would be myself as well as the committee will be making the presentation today.
okay, you might have to bring up a chair or whoever, so just the three. Yes, and just introduce the others and also introduce the others that are not present.
Of course. All right. Hello. Good morning, everyone. So today we'll be presenting the fiscal year 2023 Community Grants Program. And just wanted to introduce our grant review team. We have to the end Adetola Ajayi, thank you, from the mayor's office. We also have Patty Norris from the Annapolis Police Department, and we also have Julie Donnelly from the Finance Department. Unfortunately, Teresa Wellman from Planning and Zoning and Jeanine Coughlin from the Fire Department could not make it here today, so I'll be presenting on their behalf. And we also just wanted to thank Berenice Snyder with the mayor's office just for giving just a lot of us support and getting some of the paperwork together for us. All right. So on this slide, we just wanted to talk about the city's code as it pertains to the community grant program. And it's an operating grant that shall provide support for day-to-day costs for the running of nonprofit organization. And a capital grant shall provide support for the purchase of property, the construction, remodeling, expansion of a facility, or purchase of equipment by a nonprofit organization. And so our committee was convened to review and evaluate the applications, and those applications will be submitted recommendations to the City Council based on our evaluation, and each member was assigned about six proposals to review, and it was facilitated by myself, who's the social work care coordinator for the City of Annapolis. And just the community grant program is subject to availability of the funds. And just a brief review here, just the city will consider funding, operating, and/or capital grants. Proposals must meet one of the following priorities, is that each grant must talk about providing services that sustain and empower youth, families, and individuals to move towards an improved quality of life and self-sufficiency. They provide programs that preserve and enhance a community's character. They also provide programs that contribute to a vibrant economy or promote programs that are integral to community revitalization, economic development, and environmental sustainability. So for this fiscal year 2023, we have about 36 applications. There were about 10 new applications that did not submit in fiscal year 2022. There were matching funds for 2 agencies. Four Rivers and Bates Legacy both received $28,000 each. Total requests ended up amounting to $9,301,292. The previous request in fiscal year 22 was $710. And so with these fiscal year 23 applications, we had a multitude of services. We had 3 agencies that provided nutritional programs for children and youth, 12 programs that served children, youth, and families, 4 educational programs for adults, 4 homeless and addiction prevention programs, 4 services for adults, 6 programs that enhance arts and culture, 2 programs that contribute to a vibrant economy, and 1 program that contributed to a clean environment. And this just briefly goes over our recommendations as far as the agencies that did receive financial support money. And now we would like to present the review team, as well as the different organizations that they reviewed as well. And also on screen, we happen to have a breakdown of the fiscal 22 award that they received, their fiscal year 2023 request, and finally, the fiscal year 2023 community grant program recommendation. And if we just like Patty Norris to go and just present the organizations that she reviewed.
Good morning. Thank you, Erin. Thank you. Thanks, Erin, for facilitating and doing such a great job. Thank you. And also, all of these organizations, being in the community a lot, they all contribute tremendously to the well-being of our children and adults, and they all have done a great job, and I've seen them all working their best and hardest in the communities, especially during a difficult time. I'm going to do the easiest one first, which is the Four Rivers. That's a state match grant. They requested $28,000 and we recommended $28,000. It's part of a grant program that they received for the state, and it's a matching grant. So if we don't give them, they don't receive the $100,000 from the Maryland Heritage Arts or Areas Authority. The next one I reviewed was a Creating Communities, was established in 2007. They are in many low-income communities and deliver everything from STEM programs to arts programs. I see them in work in many of the different recreation centers throughout the year. They actually, during COVID, they did to-go packages where kids could pick up an art project and still do it at home, so they still were very active in the communities. So that's Creating Communities. They requested $10,000 and we recommended $8,000. The next one is a new one that we received from Downtown Hope. It's the Immigrant Connection at Path to Hope. They requested $25,000. We recommended $5,000. The $5,000 is kind of an arbitrary number that we recommended for any new applicant that applied. It was hard to come up with a number with a limited budget, so that's kind of what we have done in years past, and that's what we kind of stayed the course and did this year as well. This is they're attempting to open an accredited immigration legal clinic in Annapolis to provide pro bono and low-cost legal services to immigrants. Again, this is a new one that we received. The next one I reviewed was the Eastport United Methodist Church. They requested $14,209. They also were a new grant as well, and we recommended $5,000. This is for a community navigator specialist who provides a lot of emergency assistance and human services, as well as a pantry and after-school program. So this was funding for a new position within Eastport United Methodist Church. Again, they do tremendous things in the community. I think they're building in the basement of their church now, opening it up and making it available for lots of different learning opportunities for our kids. The next one I did, am I going too fast? Am I doing okay? I'm okay.
Excuse me, Erin, do you have another hard copy of the presentation for Alderwoman O'Neill?
The next one was Feed a Healthy Mind. This is one that has requested funding in the past. They requested $15,000. We recommended $4,000. They primarily are in the Oberry Court, the Clay Street quarter of the community, providing weekly classes for cooking. They also started a garden, doing food prep for children, and they would like to expand into other communities within the city of Annapolis. The last one I reviewed was the We Care and Friends. They requested $118,000. The committee recommended $20,000. We Care Friends also they actually serve the whole city, but they're located primarily they're located at the Stanton Center, and they service the Clay Street community as well as other communities. They kind of fill the gap for many services for people with mental health as well as addiction issues. I know our longtime friend, Larry Griffith, has done a tremendous job, and they have a new team in there that really have been present in the communities. They've held up pop-up pantries, as well as giving out lunches in the Clay Street community, as well as other communities too. So they've done a tremendous job. Miss Rachel and Chris Towns and a bunch of different folks have been there working this year at We Care and Friends. And those were the 6 that I reviewed.
And now we'll have Adetola Ayaji go over the requests that he received. And
good morning. I reviewed the Annapolis Maritime Museum. They do STEM programming and city partnership. So they requested $20,000. Our committee recommended $7,000. Ballet Theater of Maryland. They're working out of the Maryland Hall doing innovative programming. They requested $12,100. We recommended $5,000. Boys and Girls Club. I guess you're all familiar with them. They are requesting $10,000 for a summer program. We recommended $8,000. Brendan Sailing, they do sailing with youth. They requested $3,000, and we recommended $2,000. Center of Help work with the Latinx Hispanic community doing immigration services. They
I am going to have to interrupt you just because it involves numbers. The Boys and Girls Club
Yes.
is listed as recommended as $2,000 in the mayor's budget. Just FYI, in lieu of $8,000.
Madam Chair, I think we have different documents, but I trust that the document that they're presenting to us is the final and is the one we should be following. Is that correct?
Just as a point of information, the community grants is listed in our mayor's budget as part of the ordinance, so I just wanted for record to state that that would have to be corrected. So you can continue.
Okay. So we were a Center of Health. They requested 20,000. We recommended 15,000.
I know.
Street Angel Project, they work in substance abuse and mental health services. They requested 87,560. We recommended 5,000. That's me. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll have Julie Donnelly present the applications that she reviewed.
Okay. I'll try to go in that order. The Kunta Kinte Alex Haley, their mission is to spread Alex Haley's vision of a world that celebrates ethnic diversity through genealogy programs and educational and historical research. As part of that, they constructed the Alex Haley Memorial in City Dock, conducted national research on slavery, and archived meaningful events. They help local organizations and individuals conduct genealogy research and find lost ancestors in the community. They've created a documentary that's on file, and it's the history of the Wiley H. Bates High School, which we'll get to. I also have that one. But so it was the only African-American high school during segregation. They collected and archived historical information about the local communities. They hold an annual commemoration ceremony for the arrival of Kunta Kinte in Annapolis, and that's been going on since 1987. And they maintain an updated website which supports maintenance of that memorial. They made a request of $4,000, and the committee has recommended $3,000. My next one is Maryland Hall, which everybody is familiar with. They touch everybody in Annapolis in one way or another, even if you're not supremely into the fine arts. Everything from dance classes to performances on the steps. And they requested $30,000 for an operating grant. They offer free and low-cost programming, or their mission, they say free and low-cost programming is central to their mission, and the funds received from this grant would be dedicated to the continued growth of accessible arts experiences for all Annapolitans. And they're primarily dedicated to providing safe, inexpensive, and fulfilling ways to gather for art experiences. And they specifically mention their front stair performances. They're currently in the midst of a creative placemaking planning process with the city as part of a National Endowment for Arts, Our Town grant. And so several of the performances planned are intentionally aimed to encourage attendance of the local Hispanic and African American communities. And as a final wrap up, Maryland Hall is a major part of the Annapolis community, and it reaches a substantial portion of the citizens, and they have a proven track record of success in bringing arts to a diverse group of people. So they requested $30,000 again, and we recommended $20,000. OIC of Anne Arundel County. So they provide adult education and training to increase job readiness and the basic education level for low-income city residents. They focus on enhancement of quality of life and economic vitality of the community, and they help people advance from lower-paying jobs to higher-paying jobs, and also just to enter the workforce. Their mission is to eliminate unemployment, poverty, illiteracy, health disparities, and food insecurity among the families served. And they do that through GED prep, introduction to basic computing, Microsoft Office essentials, and English as a second language classes. They would like to address the needs of a new group of citizens, and that's what they'd be using some of our funding for. And those are the re-entering or returning citizens to the society. The funding is operational in nature and would assist funding of the online GED program in both English and Spanish, re-entry career pathways and job readiness classes, and then computer literacy and ESL classes. They had a safe and thriving 3-year grant that has run out, so they're especially worried about losing $40,000 in funding each year. And if they didn't do anything, they pointed out in their application, it simply was a 3-year grant and 3 years is up. And just as a point of reference, they also receive money through our CDBG program. Partners in Care is their mission is to, they make efforts to reduce social isolation of Annapolis seniors, those living alone with poverty level income and with the greatest health needs. So they come in and they have volunteers that provide transportation and also will perform services around their homes. So
Ms. Donnelly, could you pull your mic a little closer?
Oh,
I'm
sure.
having trouble
Sorry.
hearing you. Thank
So
you.
we're with Partners in Care, and they're focused on seniors. They'd like to expand the number of seniors they're helping this year. They requested 15,000, and we recommended 4,000 for them. Seeds for Success is the next one. Their mission is working together as a community to provide children from low-income communities with skills and support to achieve success in school and life. They want to end the cycle of poverty. They pointed out, notably in their application, that they're working with a group of kids that was hit hard by COVID and the learning gap that's taking place. So their focus is trying to close that gap. They provide tutoring and mentoring relationships and coping skills, new experiences, increased awareness of navigating the health systems, and understanding the financial aid opportunities and post-high school options. They really like to follow the kids for several years. They have relationships that on average last over 5 years, which is very impressive. They're asking for funding for a volunteer manager. This was formerly funded in part by AmeriCorps. So they'd get a volunteer in for 10 months each year, but they felt like having that 2-month empty period where it wasn't filled, plus the additional time it takes to get somebody up to speed, was a hindrance to what they want to do and expand the program. So they're looking for a full-time person. Their primary job duty would be to match students with tutors and mentors and build those relationships. So it sounds simple, but it would be very complex. They currently serve 60+ youth with tutors and mentors, and they feel like with COVID kind of winding down, they'll have a lot more. They partner with Foster, a grandparent program. They requested $10,000 in funding, and we've recommended $6,000. And then South Forest Drive Business Association. I don't have my notes, and I gave away my little blurb on them, but they're a group of businesses in the South Forest Drive area that have come together to kind of form a coalition. They do a lot of good work.
The movie nights. I wanted to.
Yeah, and they want us to sponsor movie nights for them. They requested $2,000. Their budget is about $500 per movie night. We recommended $1,000 be given to them. They do a lot of good things in the community, too. They mentioned they call themselves SOFO, and they sponsor SOFO Ho-Ho at Christmas time, which I thought was cute. And they work on cleaning up the area. I live in that area, so I see them. They plant a lot of flowers in the medians and stuff. So I didn't want to just mention the movie nights. I wanted to give them their due credit. And then the final one is Wiley Bates Legacy Center. That is also a grant that we give them $28,000 in order that they can maintain state funding at $100,000. Their mission is to preserve and present the history of Wiley H. Bates High School, and that was the only high school for African Americans in Anne Arundel County during segregation. So it's a historical, cultural, and education center. I don't want to repeat myself, so they would like direct operational support for their summer leadership and basketball league, educational scholarships for high school students in the Annapolis region, and the Bates Legacy Learning and Leadership Series. So that consists of tours, literary projects, exhibits, and it's a speaker series and various other special events. They're very active in the local schools, community groups, and charities. They requested $37,900, and we are recommending $28,000. And that's it.
Alrighty, so in lieu of Janine Coughlin, I'll be presenting the applications that she reviewed, as well as just giving a little bit of information about each organization. So the first one is Charting Careers. And they requested $35,000, and the committee recommended $9,000. They currently requested the funds for their academic, social, and behavioral health safety net programming offered at Annapolis locations, including public and subsidized housing communities, the Annapolis Maritime Museum and Park, and Annapolis High School. So overall, Charting Careers, they offer mentoring, college and career readiness, family partnership, leadership, and equity for young people to chart their own course and fulfilling lives in their careers. The next organization is the Chesapeake Children's Museum, and they originally requested $20,000, and the committee recommended $1,500. They requested funding for their All Our Children program, which was created to serve children of families who struggle to move to improve quality of life and self-sufficiency. And those funds would also be used to support families and groups who come to the museum. Next will be Community Action Agency. They requested $50,000, and the team recommended that they receive $27,500. And they're currently requesting funding for operating expenses not covered under other program grants. And these are overhead costs of running the nonprofit organization, which is located at 251 West Street, Annapolis. And they have also described the need for the funds as they've incurred additional and higher operating costs due to the pandemic for things like janitorial and translation services, online and electronic applications, agency adaptations to the employees working from home, insurance and bonding, and also as communications. The next agency is the Compass Rose Theater. Originally, they requested $17,500. The team has recommended that they receive $2,500. And so those funds were requested to help fund support work with middle and high school students in their productions and to remodel their rental spaces. The next group is Co-op Anne Arundel, who initially requested $44,000, and the team recommended they receive $10,000. The funding is for the second year of My Sister's Keeper initiative, which is a program for women in 7 low-income / public housing communities in Annapolis. And this is a program that allows other women to empower other women through lived experiences, resources, mentoring, life skills, mental health, financial literacy, goal setting, and self-introspection. And the final is a new applicant, and they are with the Live Water Foundation. And this particular organization, they have a program called the Junior YCOA program, which is made to serve residents of the Housing Authority of Annapolis. And it's a 5-week program that they've expanded for environmental initiatives. So they anticipate they will be working with about 25 youth exclusively in HACA properties. Oh, I apologize. They requested $15,000, and the team has recommended that they receive $5,000. Next is Teresa Wellman. I'll be also presenting on her behalf. I apologize. I accidentally skipped ahead. There we go. So first applicant, they are new for 2023, and it's the Heritage Baptist Church, and they requested $3,000, and the team recommended that they also receive $3,000. And so the grant funds would be used solely for the purchase of food for the population that they serve, and they provide supplemental weekend food for children in 2 public city elementary schools, which is Georgetown East and Mills Parole. The next would be Historic Annapolis. They are a new applicant for 2023. They requested $20,000, and the team recommended $5,000. And they are a leading nonprofit preservation and history organization in Annapolis. The next one is the Kunta Kinte Celebration Incorporated. And so the Kunta Kinte Heritage Festival is, they requested $9,000, and the team recommended $4,500. And the Kunta Kinte Heritage Festival is a free, family-oriented cultural celebration for all to enjoy music and dance performances. world foods, vendors, as well as the heritage and history of the African diaspora. This festival commemorates Kunta Kinte's arrival in Annapolis from Gambia, West Africa in 1767, and observes his struggle to preserve his cultural heritage. Next is the Lighthouse Shelter. And they requested $40,000, and the team recommended $20,000. The grant funds will be used to partially pay for the prevention and diversion specialist and community assistance salaries and housing assistance that helps to prevent or end homelessness for our clients. Next is Marshall Hope. They did request $640,000. The team recommended $5,000. And so those particular funds would be used to supply families in the Annapolis area with food, toiletries, feminine products, baby equipment, and diapers. And Marshall Hope's mission is to spread hope in the Annapolis community by providing essential resources and services to vulnerable and underserved families. And last would be the Wellness House of Annapolis. Where's it? Oh, gotcha. Oh, there. Sorry, I apologize about that. And the Annapolis Wellness, that is their technical name. And they requested $10,000, and the team recommended $5,000. And the Wellness House, they happen to be the only local organization that provides non-medical support without charge to adults and children diagnosed with or affected by cancer, their families, and caregivers. And so finally, these are the organizations that I reviewed. First one is the Annapolis Film Festival, which requested $25,000, and the team recommended $15,000. Next is a new applicant, which is the Annapolis H2O for Life, and they requested $30,650, and the team recommended $10,000. And so this particular project that they would like to bring about would serve about 10 to 20 students in the Annapolis area with the opportunity to acquire and build knowledge and resiliency skills. The training would also increase their knowledge through evidence-based drug society program. Next is the He Opens Paths for Everyone, otherwise known as HOPE. And the grant funds, they requested $10,000, and the team recommended $7,000. They would use the grant funds to help with the purchases of beds, basic furniture, and clothing to support the processing deliveries of the basic beds and basic goods to 35 to 40 Annapolis households in need. All right, and next would be Start the Adventure in Reading, also known as STARE. And they requested $12,000, and the team recommended that they receive $8,000. And STARE, Start the Adventure in Reading, focuses on an early intervention reading program for at-risk second grade students. And the grant funds would be used for operating expenses, including salaries, training a strong volunteer force, purchase books, curriculum, and supplies. Last one is Superior Future, and they requested $12,000, and the team recommended $5,000. And Superior Future seeks funding to expand their environmental sustainability and neighborhood beautification programs. Okay, so in summary, we just have the how much the proposals ended up totaling, which was $919,292, and the awards totaled $342,000. And that would be the end of our presentation. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Just two questions very quickly. On the organizations that provide dancing, et cetera, is that coordinated with Arts and Public Places so that there's sort of this coordinated initiative? Do you understand? What
Yeah, unfortunately, I do not know that, but that's a very good question that we can, get more information about for you guys.
Just work, I know that hopefully they'll have some expansion. And then the second question is directed to Director Dickinson. How do you typically address Appendix E? As I see that what's important is that the total, I believe the total, is
Is the
correct.
same, correct. So as I understand it, since we had the original Appendix E listing, there was an additional application considered, and the committee met and found some funding for that organization and had to reshift some of the awards. And that could be the reason for some of the differences we're seeing in the presentation, although if there could be other issues in there that didn't involve that change. What we need to do is to have a revised listing. We would need to put that forward as an amendment to the budget ordinance, replacing Appendix E with another listing. So in the meantime, the Finance Committee should consider if there's any other changes to that listing that you want to make so that we don't do a replacement and then the Finance Committee would have to come up with another replacement.
Okay.
So if the committee could give us a revised listing so we know what we're working with, we may already have it. It's just, I don't know what you have.
Yeah.
So-
We have, what we have, the Appendix E. I found about 11 discrepancies.
But I believe once they reshuffled the awards, we did get a revised listing, and I'm not sure how far that's gone,
Okay,
how
but-
far that's been distributed.
But for the record, unlike other department presentations, we're going to use their presentation
Right.
as the latest and
Yes,
greatest.
and work from that, because it's got it had another organization added to it, since
Yeah.
what you see on
Yes.
Granicus.
Yes, I believe that was the Superior Future, so, thank you. Colleagues?
Are you calling me?
Alderman Finlayson.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that this was a job handed to you on top of everything else that you've been assigned to do for us. And this is no small task. So I commend you. Your recommendations are recommendations to us so that we make the final decision. And we take what you have done very seriously. I had some concerns initially about some of the recommendations. I am very much, I'm very happy with what you presented today. You have given it the even hand that my colleagues have asked me to do in the past, because I always felt like everyone should be given something. And you've taken that same idea and perpetuated it in these recommendations. So I want to thank you for being considerate of all of the agencies that provide a service that we cannot provide. So with that, I just want to make sure we're clear. There are no capital proposals. Am I correct? These are all operating.
Yes, these are all operating costs.
Okay, because in the past, we have given literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to Maryland Hall when they were doing their major renovations years ago, and to the Lighthouse Shelter when they were under construction originally. We're giving them now operating grants. So I just wanted to be clear that there are no capital grants. These are all operating grants. So with that, I don't think I have any other questions other than the Community Action Agency, I thought, submitted a request for, what's the program that's at the Stanton Center? It's skipping, I can't think of it. That
Workforce
Kirby
development?
used to,
Workforce development program or no?
no, it's the counseling. Annapolis Youth
Oh,
Services
Youth
Bureau.
Services Bureau.
And then a request for green jobs. Did they not submit a jobs application this year?
So in the paperwork that I received, I did not receive those particular requests. So they may have sent something later. I just know we did not receive any.
Okay. All right, well, I can work that out if I find out some more information. So I just want to say thank you for your recommendations to us. You've done a yeoman's job, so I appreciate it.
Thank you, Alderwoman Finlayson, and that actually, that means a lot, because Alderwoman Finlayson has done extensive work on these in the past with that concern that she just said, so that's great. But can I just sneak in one question? When you mentioned matching grants, are they in, it's Director Dickinson, are the matching grants in the budget, or is?
Matching grants for what?
You mentioned,
There's two agencies.
That
Four Rivers.
these funds provide matching funds for that agency, not that we're providing additional
Okay.
matching funds.
okay, thank you.
Correct?
Correct.
Correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
They're using them as matching funds toward another
Got it.
source.
To achieve the
Thank
$100,000 that they need, correct?
Thank you for that clarification.
Madam Chair, may I add something? Many of these organizations count on local funding so they can leverage county, state, and federal funds. So it's very important. You can call it matching, but if they don't see that the local will support the agency, then very often others will not support it. So lots of these organizations are able to leverage to get some matching funds from somewhere else. So anyway, I just want to make that clear.
Thank you for that clarification. Alderwoman O'Neill.
I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you very much for the presentation and all the work that you did there.
All right, do my colleagues have any questions? Alderman Arnett, I limited them to 2 or within 5 minutes, whatever comes, whatever comes soonest. Alderwoman Pindle Charles.
Now,
Oh,
I'll have questions of the city manager about the shuttle system,
Oh, dear.
but not on the
Yeah.
community grants. Thank you for your work.
Oh, gosh, it's a hectic day. Alderwoman Pindle Charles.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I thank you all and applaud you all. What a wonderful group, such camaraderie, and it's based on the folks that I know that are on there. But anyway, I had a question, and you might have answered it, maybe I missed it. Go back to slide number 7, please. Can I assume that your data there, there's some overlapping in programs? Somebody may be doing environmental, but it also may pertain to children, youth, and families. Is that correct? Correct.
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay, I wanted to make sure. It seemed like I had one more, but maybe not. Oh, Historic Annapolis. I heard a mini description, which was very good in each one, but I didn't hear Historic Annapolis and what they were using their funding for.
In part, they want to use the funding to create a walking tour.
A walking tour?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. And I think that's all the questions I had, just those 2. Yeah, that's it. Thank you all so much.
Alderman Gay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. I'm using my 5 minutes quickly, so I need not that I would be snappy like that. This matching grant that we've previously given $28,000 to the Annapolis, London Town, and South County Heritage Area Incorporated. That's a large amount of the community grants. What exactly are they doing for the underserved communities in the city of Annapolis, understanding that they aren't even located in the city of Annapolis?
Specific for the underserved communities, I don't know. I know that there are areas that within the Heritage Foundation is available to all residents.
Okay.
And so, for example, maybe some of like Charting Careers or Seeks for Success uses their areas through the Four Rivers Foundation, but I don't know specifically.
I appreciate that. Secondly, another large one was the Community Action Agency, $27,500. And I've had gripe with that even dating back to COVID. You've noted a number of these nonprofit organizations that are applying for these funds have been on the ground, have been active during COVID, out. The Community Action Agency was closed. They are in the middle of a hybrid situation right now. It's even noted in here that this will be assisted to help people work from home. I don't think we should be in the business of helping people work from home with our community grants. It should be going to organizations that are actually on the ground working. And I've just had so many experiences, Aaron. I've even sent you applications dating back to COVID with this organization. And I think they've, done great work in the community, but there has to be a point where we say, look, we're giving you large amounts of money to help our constituents. They should be helped in a timely fashion. If you submit an application in February for assistance, somebody shouldn't be getting back to you in May. I'm evicted by then. And so that's critically important as well. Am I correct in reading in this chart that you've given us where it says last quarterly report submitted in FY22? Some of them say first quarter. So does that mean that they haven't been keeping up with their grant applications?
So I wanted to apologize because that we did update the form, and there's also but for many organizations, they may have spent that money in the first or second quarter, and so they would not turn in any future paperwork after that.
Awesome, I appreciate that. I think otherwise, like stated by my colleagues, I mean, you all did a really, really good job. I won't amend it too much, but as the Alderwoman has stated, we do have an opportunity to amend, and I think it should be amended to those who serve great purpose in our community. Patty, you do a really, really good job with the police department and engaging with some of these nonprofits and making sure they serve our kids. And that's what's so important. And so I appreciate this very much.
Alderwoman Finlayson has another question.
Actually, it's not a question. It is a comment, and it is in response to Alderman Gay's comments about the Community Action Agency. I know for a fact that the Community Action Agency did not close down during the pandemic. As a matter of fact, they dispersed in our community well over $1 million during the pandemic to assist folks with their energy, all kinds of bills that needed to be paid. The county executive trusted the agency to the point to give them an additional $1 million to dispense throughout our community, and it was dispatched as they worked from home. The doors may have been closed. Our Stanton Center was closed on a number of occasions, and by the way, they've renovated our Stanton Center so that their folks can gradually move back in. The pandemic has caused everyone to work differently, but I will say very specifically that the Community Action Agency did not allow people to go in need. And if there are a couple of cases, then I'm sorry it wasn't addressed with the director, because she would have handled it immediately. And as a member of the board, I'm sorry that you didn't get the information that everybody else had about their activities. But
Madam Chair, I served on the board as well, so I'm aware.
I know you did.
I'm aware of what took place during the pandemic. And I mean no disrespect to the program. And I think, again, they have done great work in the past. And that's what typically happens with these organizations. They award based off of work. And so obviously if the county executive believes that they have been doing a sufficient job in the past, they'll continue to receive grants. That's how this grant program has operated in the past. And I have no problem with that. But again, the priority is the constituency. And it's not on a couple of cases. I've had several instances dating back to 2019 with the Community Action Agency and constituents receiving timely communications in response to what are dire situations. And if it can't be handled sufficiently there are other organizations that can do so. And I think that's the priority, and we can talk offline about it because I don't want to continue to do this in the public. But also I wanted to note the significance in grants to the Center of Help and things like that. That's important too, because I represent Tyler Heights, which is a large Hispanic and Latino population, and I'm happy that we're providing assistance there. And there was one other one that was providing legal assistance, and I hope to provide additional funding there as well. So.
Okay, and I believe one data point, if I'm not mistaken, Alderwoman Finlayson, is that the Community Action did spend some money on, some of their own money on renovating the Stanton Center?
I'm sorry. They paid for all of the renovations. New carpet, new paint, new furniture, they paid for it. Yeah, absolutely. So,
just a point of clarification there. All right. Well, thank you very much. And ditto what my colleague said. Just path forward, we'll work off of your spreadsheet, which we have, and the Finance Committee makes their recommendations to the City Council, which then have their time to have discourse. So thank you again. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you.
All righty. Oh, wait, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
all I'm saying is duck.
Well, yeah, I have a lot here. Alderman Finlayson, you have to throw one because I have three.
Let's see. David is headed for the door.
All right.
Okay.
Whoever catches one, aren't they cute?
Sorry, Erin.
Thank you. Thank you. That's our congratulations. So it isn't a painful memory. Thank you. So next we have the City Manager's Office, which I understand. I think Erin, you stay and City Manager will introduce his counterparts.
Got the whole team.
All right.
You want to run the slide? Besides talking, you want to run the slide?
All righty.
Okay.
So we're going good on time. We have the hour, if that works for you. Less is always better, but take the time that you need.
All right, good morning. I'm David Gerald, City Manager. To my left is
Felicia Nolan, Special Events.
To my right is
Jackie Guile, Deputy City Manager for Resilience and Sustainability, and
Erin Lee, Social Work Care Coordinator for the Office of Community Services.
Okay, so let's go forward to the next slide. So this is sort of a listing of what we think are the most important things that we do for the city. I think that the very first one is the most important thing, and that's to carry out the vision, goals, and principles and priorities and policies of the mayor and city council. I'm kind of the link for the staff between the mayor and council, and so I think that's my main job. My most important job is to make sure that all of your priorities are being translated to staff.
Excuse me, time. Could you make the presentation full screen so the viewers at home can see it? It's a request. Full screen. Sorry to interrupt.
There we go. That's much better. So the second thing is just to keep the operations running the way they should be running, to not over-intervene, but when there's problems, to try to deal with those problems. We have, as you know, a terrific group of department directors whose principal job is also that, within the department, to make sure operations are moving forward appropriately. And then I just provide another level of oversight for that. The next one is to make sure that the departments have the resources that they need to do their jobs. Again, another important thing, and that's why I'm constantly being barraged with requests for more money from many different places. But that is an important thing. We also should be pursuing improvement opportunities when they arise, and we do that throughout the year, and then we also take a look during budget time to see if there's things that we can do better and perhaps need more budget support for some of those types of things. So the economic gardening is one thing that Alderman Schandelmeyer brought up, but I think that's a great opportunity for us to look and perhaps do things differently and better. We need to ensure that we always have the equity lens when we're making any decisions or taking any actions, that's taken into account. Very, very important. Resilience and sustainability considerations also need to be taken for any of our projects that are being proposed or actions that are being taken. Improve and enhance the environment so that when we all are no longer here, things are still in good shape. And then to provide conduits for all of our underserved, particularly our underserved communities, to services that are available from either the county or the state or the federal government or other nonprofit agencies. Next slide. So this is kind of an eye test. I'm not sure why we need to provide all the departments on this, but we're the little block up there on top. So let's just go on to the next slide. So this is our team, and most of us are sitting right here. So myself and Assistant City Manager are the management group team. Resilience and Sustainability, Deputy City Manager Guild, and Environmental Program Coordinator Racine Hodo. Did I say that right? Yes. Yeah. And then Felicia is the Special Events Coordinator, and Office of Community Services is Miss Lee. Erica Griswold is our administrative assistant, and we propose to make Laura Gutierrez, sitting behind me as part of the team, as the community engagement administrator. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Okay, this is one that you haven't seen from the other departments, but I thought this was important from a city management perspective. So we're the little tiny slice. Looks like this came out a little bit different than what it was in the slides. But we're about 1% of the general fund budget. Yeah, this is interesting. This definitely came out different than what it was in the PowerPoint. It's kind of difficult to read. But police 25%, fire 23%, public works is another big piece, but doesn't look as big on this slide because they get a lot of enterprise fund budget. Transportation's not on here because this is just general fund, but this gives you a very bad sense of, because this slide got messed up, but a sense of the division of general fund budget between the departments. So let's move on. Okay, this is our other famous pie chart. This is a little bit skewed because we have the project coordinator for the City Dock project, Eileen Fogarty, included in this, so that increases our supplies and other account. Because otherwise it's mostly salaries and benefits. Likewise, community services is mostly salary and benefits. Okay, so our highlights for the year. I'll just run through these very, very quickly. So COVID was a difficult process for all of us. It was a difficult thing to manage through from a city management perspective. I think we did well due to the great work that the departments did, the great work that emergency management did to lead us through that whole process. You know, we just couldn't have been as successful as we were without them. And you know, Kevin Simmons was such a great leader through that. We got through the design phase for Hillman Garage. We did a lot of public outreach on that. it was generally successful. Things, of course, get a little bit difficult as you get closer to it, and so we've had some struggles here lately. But we've done a lot of planning, and certainly interested to hear about the shuttle issues, because everybody I've talked to this morning had a good experience. So, yeah, that's right. So we can talk about that a little bit more, but yeah. We were able to successfully work with the state and the county to get funding for Carr's Beach, which was a huge priority for us to be able to preserve that land instead of having a whole bunch of townhouses built on that. So the governor and the Board of Public Works approved that funding last week. The state, particularly the governor, was a big supporter of that and personally added a lot of funding to make sure that went through. So that's a real highlight for us. We're getting $500,000 in state funding for the utilities undergrounding program. We're working closely with our state delegation, but also with Historic Annapolis, who has a great interest in the historic areas and undergrounding the dry utilities, the electric and communications. Got $600,000 for Stan Center. That building needs a lot of work. We did a condition assessment on it and have identified what all the priorities are, and so we're going to address that with this funding that's coming in from the state. Right now, we're in the process of hiring an engineering firm to put together the designs for that construction work. We've also received money for Truxton Park improvements. We're going to resurface the basketball courts. We're going to try to build a storage garage and an office for the maintenance crew in Reckham Park, long overdue with that money. We were able to get $10 million from the governor for the City Dock project. Again, lots of thanks to the governor for that, because when the budget first came out, that was going to be $1.2 million for FY23, and he personally decided it needed to be bumped up to $10 million. So that's a great help with that project. We're working on the Choice Neighborhoods grant from HUD. We applied for and got that. Now we're in the throes of doing that study and putting together the information that's required. We managed to spend all of the CARES Act grant funding last year, and we collaborated with Anne Arundel County for the Resilience Financing Authority, though they're struggling to find an executive director at this point, but we're hoping that gets resolved soon and that we are able to benefit from that Resilience Financing Authority for some money for City Dock. So next slide. I think I'm going to pass it on to Jackie for her highlights.
Okay. And these are just the highlights. We actually accomplished quite a bit this year on resilience and sustainability, working across all departments. One large project we're working on right now is our collaboration with the Naval Academy in Anne Arundel County on the MIR, which is the Military Installation Resilience Review. Our contractor is Stantec, and this is a review of the assets that both the county, the city, and USNA have in common and independently that can co-benefit one another, and also the challenges associated with mostly sea level rise and climate change impacts. We're focused mostly in what this study will do. We'll make recommendations and start to implement the recommendations from the study that protect assets and build resilience for the county and the city and the Naval Academy, but overall ensure that the Naval Academy is their mission, they can still accomplish their mission there on that installation. And a lot of it's focused around transportation, evacuation routes, any other transportation challenges, and part of it is updating our signals in the city. So that everything works well and is up to date and not outdated anymore. That was the city was the lead in pursuing that grant, and the city is the project lead for it, and I lead that as the staff person for the city. And that's ongoing. We'll be probably finished next year. I think we have a target date of January 2023. We revised it from the end of this year to January 2023. The next one is about the comprehensive plan, 2040 Annapolis Ahead. I worked with Public Works and Planning and Zoning and all the departments on making sure that we covered resilience elements and incorporated them into the plan. So you'll see there's a new area in the plan which covers environmentally sensitive areas. There's building, where we build, how we build is addressed. Our transportation has resilience elements into it, rec and parks, water quality. So it's throughout the entire comp plan. Now we have resilience and environmental sustainability type of components. And we had a lot of input from residents, homeowners associations, and different environmental stakeholder groups from the Conservancy Board, and the Environmental Commission had a lot of input as well into the comp plan, the draft comp plan. A lot of kudos, of course, to Eric Lashinsky, our Chief of Comprehensive Planning, and working with us on all of the resilience elements. Hawkins Cove Restoration Project is the next bullet. That project is moving forward. There's a RFP out now for that, but we secured $65,000 from the Chesapeake Bay Trust for the improvement of that project and creating public access at Hawkins Cove, and an additional $65,000 through the trust, but through a private foundation that is interested in continuing to help fund that project as we move forward with it. Then I worked with the harbor master on street end parks, identifying funding for them, and prioritizing projects, identifying ways we could get them working through Public Works, and staffing them correctly. So again, this is around public access and making these, some of the street end parks will identified as street end parks, because many residents don't know that they exist because they're not marked as parks. So that's something we're working with Recreation and Parks on as well. Then the next is the food scraps, and that's around composting. The city initiated a pilot program this year in Hunt Meadows, a curbside program, but at the same time, Annapolis Green had received, nonprofit Annapolis Green, that is, here in town, had received a grant for composting. And before they pursued that grant, they asked if the city would partner with them in providing a location for a drop-off location so that people who were not in the curbside pickup program would have an alternative. And that we helped them get that grant, and Rec and Parks provided a location in the skate park parking lot. And that has now become a permanent program of the city. It was very popular. There were a lot of residents who wanted it to continue. So we're now funding that through Public Works' Waste Collection Fund as a permanent program in Truxton Park for food drop-off. And then those food scraps are taken to a location for composting. Then the next one is that we, a new program that we initiated in the past year with the Chesapeake Bay Trust. So the city is providing funds to the trust through the Watershed Restoration Grant Program. This is an Anne Arundel County program the Anne Arundel County participates in, but the city also participates in for those projects that are initiated within city limits. This past year was our first year participating in this, and we funded 3 projects, and we just decided on 5 more projects. And some of these are studies to see what stormwater controls can be implemented, especially in neighborhoods and communities where there were no stormwater controls. They may predated our stormwater requirements and predated the updated stormwater requirements for best management practices that are designed around the natural hydrology of a particular piece of property and addressing at source rather than off-source and large impoundment type of stormwater management. So this year we're funding additional projects. Some of them are design, as I mentioned, some are studies, and some are actual construction projects. And these, we tried to make sure that they are distributed across all the different wards, and we also make lower income communities and communities that do not have stormwater management already in place priorities through this program. And that's a very successful collaboration with the trust. And the last is we continue to install electric vehicle charging stations in partnership with BG&E. We have charging stations now in Gott's Garage, going in at Park Place. They had to redesign there. We have them at the Pip Moyer Recreation Center, at Crab's location. We're looking at location at the Back Creek Maritime Museum's campus, and that will be very helpful. Once people start going down to Cars Beach, they could park there and charge and then enjoy Cars Beach. And then we are looking at other locations throughout the city that are city-owned, such as the South Street parking area, downtown, once City Dock is reconstructed. And then we worked with approving permits that the state put in on Northwest Street. And then also an Eastport Library and the West Street Library, which are county projects, but they are within city limits. Okay.
Just before we leave that, I think it's important to note that what we were hoping when we set up the deputy city manager position was that position would coordinate with all the other departments, not necessarily carry out all of the programs, but develop programs and then ensure that all of the departments are carrying through with the programs, but also have that sort of lens for resilience and sustainability in the projects that they do. So it's working out well because Jackie is developing a lot of new projects and then passing it off to the departments to actually carry it out, because obviously two people can't do it all. And that was never the intent. The intent was always to coordinate with the departments to get these types of projects done. So that's been very successful. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I missed one. I saw up there. Replant Annapolis is a new program with the Anne Arundel County Watershed Stewards Program. There's already such a program in the county, and we're mimicking that same program in the city, working with our city forester to plant more trees so we can move towards our goal of 40% tree canopy cover by 2036 a little faster and maybe even exceed it. And that's a program that trains what they call tree troopers. So these are community members who want to plant trees in their neighborhood. They go through a training program with the Watershed Stewards Academy, and they identify locations for tree planting and types of trees to plant. So we have that up and running now for the spring season and working with the city forester. We have it initially funded at $30,000 through the Watershed Restoration Fund. And we'll see how much of that money we use and whether we need to increase it for next year or in the fall. Thank you.
Okay, we'll pass it to Erin for the community services items.
Sure. Hi, good morning. So just a few of the highlights from fiscal year 2022. Actually, I would say this number of assisted residents has gone up since the highlights were made. So I would say at this point, we've assisted in about 250 Annapolis residents with requests for assistance. One of the great things is the word of mouth has gotten out about our office. And so we will receive calls from, residents saying, my cousin, my mother, my sister called and was able to get assistance. And, we are in need of as well. So that has just been a huge development, and we are very happy to hear, positive outcomes as well as positive reviews from residents. I would say after the tornado struck in Parole, we were able to partner with city, county, and state agencies to provide direct assistance to overwhelmed residents. So that particular assistance took the form of service coordination, as well as reaching out to other nonprofits to ensure that residents were receiving services. We also partnered with Red Cross to provide direct assistance to residents who were displaced by home fires, by coordinating services to provide emergency housing vouchers, furniture, and clothes. And so the emergency housing vouchers were provided by the Housing Authority of the City of Annapolis, and they were able to provide residents who unfortunately lost everything, homes in Robinwood, as well as in Harbor House, those particular areas. We're very fortunate that we played a role in that. We also partnered with the Housing Authority of the City of Annapolis to sign up residents who were behind in their rent for the Rental Eviction Avoidance Program, which is also known as REAP. And this particular program not only assists residents to catch up on their rent to avoid eviction, but then also teaches them certain, I would say, financial skills, such as balancing budgets, and basically ensuring that getting behind on their rent does not happen again. We also partnered with Food Fridays, a program that I'm very proud of being a part of since I first started working with the city of Annapolis. And this is a particular program that delivers fresh food boxes to Annapolis residents who need food assistance. We've also, at our offices, which are located in Robinwood and also in Harbor House, we've also hosted nonprofit organizations such as Arundel Lodge and Seeds for Success in order for these programs to meet the residents where they are. One of the big concerns that we hear from residents is that they're not able to get to particular places. And luckily, by bringing them the resources to the neighborhoods, they can just take a 5-minute walk versus waiting maybe an hour, 2-hour bus ride. And at the end here, finally, I also was able to lead the fiscal year 2023 community grants application review, evaluation, and recommendation process. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Okay, so our FY23 goals. I'll go first, city management. So we're working with the audit committee right now to update, not create and not develop, but I think update's the right word, that the 2012 strategic plan updated to today's version. I think it's a pretty good start. I think it's just going to take some tweaking, but not major redevelopment. But then based on that strategic plan that's developed, then we'll update the performance measures. I think we all agree that we have too many performance measures right now, so we need to really cut those back and make them more in alignment with the key parts of the strategic plan. The next one, we hope the FY23 will be a balanced budget, and we fully anticipate that it will be. We want to continue to strive for diversity across everything that we do. And then we're hoping that Hillman Garage will be completed on time and on budget, and then we'll get started next spring with the City Dock project.
Okay, and with regard to resilience and sustainability initiative goals, overall goal is to improve the water quality of Annapolis waterways. Secondly, reduce waste to our landfill, reduce litter, increase recycling and composting, and reduce food waste. Another goal is to mitigate the impacts and create resilience to climate change, and that's incorporated into everything that I look at and do and work with all the department heads on. And then last is to reduce the city's greenhouse gas emissions and improve our overall air quality in the city.
And for community services is to improve the lives of the city's underserved population and just continue to grow and continue to assist.
So just to kind of preface the performance measure discussion. So we have developed for resilience and sustainability a full suite of performance measures. So that's what we're going to discuss now. As part of FY23, we will be developing similar performance measures for community services, but we don't have those just yet. So that's part of the development process for community services.
Okay, so to dive in with goal 1, which I mentioned was water quality improvement for all of Annapolis waterways. To get there, part of that was to complete projects that reduce pollution towards our waterways and then earn pollution credits to our National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit. And overall, this would improve the health of our creeks, our rivers, shorelines, and wetlands. And the second objective was to support the nonprofit and HOA-led projects that help us towards that same goal of earning pollution reduction credits and improve the health of the rivers, creeks, and shorelines and wetlands, and provide funding for community-led projects through the Chesapeake Bay Trust. And I mentioned that a little earlier. So benchmarks would be meeting our MS4 permit requirements and marking progress towards the implementation of the Chesapeake Bay TMDL or pollution diet, and implementing projects on Back Creek and Spot Creek in their watersheds. And then to revise the city code concerning stormwater and sediment and erosion controls, and to reflect the changing climate conditions so that we are building environmental resilience into our code. So with regard to the performance measures, our MS4 permit requirements are being met and may even be exceeded this year. We have to report again in October. We've just received a very favorable report from the Maryland Department of the Environment with regard to our progress. We are reducing our impervious surface. We have to reduce it by 20% of the existing impervious surface. And we will most likely exceed that 20% number with the projects that we're implementing and those we have through the trust and the ones that are in design and the ones that are being led by the nonprofits and the HOAs. And so our TMDL progress will be, is moving forward as we identified it already. And we have a number of projects, I mentioned that earlier in my presentation, that we're funding through the trust. Some of them are coming to us through nonprofits and HOAs, and others are being implemented by Greenvest, the city's contractor for the city-led projects. The other performance measure was the city council would pass ordinances revising our stormwater and sediment and erosion control sections of the city code. Those are things that I have already started working with the directors of both Public Works and Planning and Zoning to get going this summer. We had a little bit of a setback in getting them started because we had a couple of development projects, particularly the Parkside Preserve project, which required a great deal of time this year to address. But we had some good results out of that work in that we have a much better stormwater and sediment and erosion control a kind of checklist we have now for when they do inspections, a much better robust inspection process and reporting. It's more transparent to the public. And we started looking at sediment and erosion control a little bit more during that process, and we have a better enforcement protocol as a result. Next slide. So goal 2 is to reduce waste to landfill, litter and food waste, increase recycling and composting. We wanted to increase our recycling rates and compliance, eliminate the use of plastic products, educate the public on the effects of plastic litter and waste and rates of food waste and methods for reduction, and to promote composting and participation in city programs. The benchmarks would be promoting recycling and compliance, creating public education campaigns around food waste, and promoting composting and participation in city composting programs. And the performance measures are the rates of recycling, participation, and compliance increased, elimination of single-use plastic from city buildings and public campaigns implemented, and to develop a long-term drop-off location to accept curbside pickup. Next slide. Goal 3 is to mitigate the impacts and create resilience to climate change. And the objectives are building the infrastructure to create that resilience to sea level rise, flooding, and other climate change impacts, implementing a strategy to increase the city's tree canopy, including trees and all housing plans, and create sea level rise buffers and stormwater management through conservation and enhancement of natural resources. The benchmarks would be funds obtained for projects identified by the MER, that's the Military Installation Resilience Review, and other gray and green infrastructure projects, to plant sufficient trees to meet the Tree City USA requirements and stay on track for 40% tree canopy by 2036, preserve the undeveloped shoreline and wetland areas, and place conservation easements on property that can provide natural buffers to climate change impacts. Performance measures are green infrastructure incorporating areas lacking stormwater control and coordinating with the county and USNA on MER projects. 2 is the number of trees planted, the written strategy completed and being implemented for street tree and other tree areas. And lastly, shoreline and wetland projects that are in design or under construction, and conservation easements that are placed on properties. And the last goal is to reduce the city, that's the last one, yeah. Reduce city's greenhouse gas emissions and improve air quality. The objectives were to add electric vehicles to the city fleet, install charging stations, increase pedestrian and bicycle mobility, build resilience and reduce greenhouse gas emissions through building performance standards, long-term reduction goals for the city government and private emissions of greenhouse gases that will move the city towards 50% reduction by 2035, and net zero by 2050. Benchmarks, budgeted seek grants for purchases of EVs, continue to install EV chargers throughout the city, create bike paths and agreements with private partners, revise the city code to achieve reductions in energy use and greenhouse gas emissions from existing and new commercial and residential buildings, and to complete the update to the greenhouse gas inventory for the city and initiate greenhouse gas inventory for private properties in the city. Our performance measures were the amount of funds appropriated towards these efforts, the number of EV or alternative fuel vehicles purchased, the number of EV chargers installed, EV kiosks installed, and bike paths designed and built. Secondly, the City Council would pass an ordinance with revisions to the building code requirements. And third, reduction goals and needed actions are identified and incorporated into the city's resilience plan.
Okay, so our long-term goals, number one, to eliminate the structural deficit. As you all know, we're using ARPA funding in FY23 and probably FY24 almost certainly to cover the structural deficit that we have. But starting in 25 and beyond, we're not going to have the ARPA funding, and we're going to need to have a structurally balanced budget. So that's part of our long-term goals. We want to complete the City Dock project within that time period. Continue to work on diversity with the city workforce, such that it mirrors the city's population, and then fully implement actually the council's vision of the Office of Community Services. So it's a step-by-step process, but we want to finish that, and so they're up and running completely by the 24 to 27 period. Do the next four.
Okay. So the fifth one here is to enhance the city's resilience by reducing the impacts of climate change, mitigate and build resilience to sea level rise throughout the city and all our projects, sea level rise, flooding, severe temperatures, water scarcity, energy resources, essential services, how building resilience into our economy because around the environmental impacts, and also protecting our social and cultural assets. Number 6 is to implement progress towards meeting the 50% reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions by 2035 and getting to net zero emissions by 2050. Next goal is to improve the water quality of the city waterways and achieve levels that will remove our creeks from the Clean Water Act impaired list and implement practices to achieve the Bay total maximum daily loads, otherwise known as the Chesapeake Bay pollution diet. And lastly, to protect and enhance biodiversity throughout the city and protect our natural spaces, both for humans and wildlife. Yeah. So in achieving our performance measures, and the first question was posed is what performance measures were most successfully completed? And we made a great deal of progress. As I mentioned before, our MS4 permit is on track, not only to be met, but exceeded this year when we report in October. We have a number of projects underway through our contractor Greenvest, as I mentioned, through the funds we've provided to the Chesapeake Bay Trust. We have HOAs and communities and nonprofits doing shoreline projects, regenerative stream system projects, putting in stormwater controls where none existed in their communities. And we continue to fund, as I mentioned, it was a goal to fund the projects to the Chesapeake Bay Trust. We did that, and we did it again this year. We have 5 more projects we selected through them. Sediment and erosion control improvements through revised inspection and enforcement procedures. I mentioned that earlier. Largely through the work we were doing at Parkside Preserve Development, we have a much better inspection checklist and enforcement protocols, which resulted in much better compliance overall at that site. And we're bringing that forward into all of the development sites that we have in progress now and in the future. So we expect much better compliance and far less complaints and far less pollution as a result leaving these sites. We had recycling compliance through public education. The Department of Public Works did a lot of public education earlier in the year, in the fiscal year. We removed plastic bags from the waste stream. So they're not going to the landfill anymore. They're not gumming up our recycling machinery that is used for a recycling facility. And we also did 2 campaigns around reducing and using plastic. We had a Plastic Free Annapolis campaign, which was mostly aimed at the hospitality industry, at restaurants, hotels, cafes, and then we also did a cigarette butt campaign called No Butts in the Bay, and we still have those receptacles available throughout Annapolis. We can move them around. And I just learned that there's some, Annapolis Green received some additional funding to expand on that program with the city. The curbside collection pilot program in Hunt Meadows, I mentioned that earlier, was implemented, was very successful, and a permanent food scrap drop-off location in Truxton Park was established. I mentioned that as well. We did it as a pilot program at the same time as Hunt Meadows, but now we're continuing that program in Truxton Park. And through the Department of Public Works' restoration projects, we are targeting stormwater control requirements and stormwater controls where they did not exist in certain communities because they predated our stormwater requirements, or they were not up to the new standards, which are best management practices, working with natural site design wherever practical. And we're funding projects through the Chesapeake Bay Trust, and the city is leading the Military Installation Resilience Review with Anne Arundel County and USNA. I mentioned the tree planting program. We're not only meeting our Tree City USA requirements, we planted over 100 trees in the city last year through the Department of Planning and Zoning, but we initiated this Replant Annapolis program I mentioned earlier. So we'll have more trees planted more quickly through that program, employing city residents in that. And then we have several shoreline and wetland creation improvement projects in design, and the Conservancy Board was probably the most active. They have said they have been in many, many years in identifying and creating a comprehensive conservation easement program where they're targeting and identifying throughout the city. They've mapped them out, which properties they would like to put conservation easements on so that there's better connectivity throughout the city as part of the Greenway plan that the mayor has, so they can connect into our plans for bike trails and other areas that we would like to, where we'd like to create city parks. And they identified 3 large areas. One would be Truxton Park, Hawkins Cove, and with the acquisition of Carrs Beach, it's another area that the Conservancy's board is looking at to put a conservation easement on. And then we have EV charging units. I mentioned where they were installed. Others are in design. About 4 others are in design. The city now has the bicycle and scooter contract, and for electric bicycles and scooters. And we have an e-mobility plan now, and the bike trail plan has been designed. And to the question of what performance measures were least successfully completed, one that I think is very important is converting the city fleet over to EVs, to electric vehicles. That is a project that has been stopped and started a number of times. This summer is when I'm going to focus on that project. We need to get our fleet converted over. But part of that is having the funds to do that. Secondly, to revise our building code requirements, building performance standards into it. That again is an initiative I already spoke to the director of planning and zoning about, and I will speak to the new director when he starts next week, that this is a really important initiative to undertake to make our buildings more resilient, more energy efficient. And our current director is very interested in doing that. And I believe the person that we have coming in is also of the same mindset. Our reduction goals and actions were not incorporated into the resilience plan, partly because our draft resilience plan that we created a couple of years ago was put on hold because it didn't turn out to be a completed plan. It was more of a draft plan. And then I took a step back from it because we had the Murrah project starting that was going to make a number of recommendations and start that had elements that needed to be incorporated into our resilience plan, and that won't be completed until January 2023, as I mentioned. The Office of Emergency Management is updating their hazard mitigation plan. They have a flood hazard mitigation plan that will also be updated through a study that is underway right now. And so what I'm going to do this summer is start to incorporate the results of all these plans into our existing draft resilience plan. So that again is a end of second quarter, beginning of third quarter plan to start working on the resilience plan again. And the last performance measure that was not completed was to revise the stormwater sections of city code. I know that Director Johnson had planned to do that. Things got a little bit sidetracked with the Parkside Preserve, so that is still an initiative that's going to start with me and the Department of Public Works this summer, and on the stormwater sections of the city code.
Okay, here's the summary of our budget over the last 3 years. So the city manager budget will drop off somewhat significantly when the City Dock project is completed and we no longer need the wonderful services of Eileen Fogarty, which is included in here. For Office of Community Services, you see significant growth from 22 to 23, and that's bringing on Laura to be part of that office. So if we go to the next slide, you can see a breakdown of what has changed from FY22. $10,000 grant for sustainability, as well as $10,000 to buy, or for the annual lease fee for resilience software. We have a one-time cost for that software that's not shown here. This is all operating. Adding money for telephones, $1,500 to increase, basically double the training budget within our group. I mentioned before the $35,000 increase in our project management support. She works so many more hours than what we pay her for, as you can imagine, Eileen Fogarty, because she's always available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So she's done a great job helping with that. We're also increasing for Christmas lights and for the Juneteenth event, providing some money in Felicia's budget for that. Community Services mentioned bringing Laura over from the mayor's office. So is really just a transfer from the mayor's office over to the city manager's budget. We're increasing for contract services, for additional telephones, for supplies, and for training for the group of three. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Please keep Eileen Fogarty. Please. Sorry, the little sanity thing there. She does work 24/7 and over weekends, as you well know. Surprisingly, I don't have too many questions for the city manager because I deal with that office daily, unless he wants to answer what the strategy is for the structural deficit projected in 2025. Actually, it's a valid question whether or not you're looking for any sort of structural changes, or are you looking more on the revenue side or more on the expense side when you look at that forecast for 2025?
So we'll continue to monitor the revenue side because, as we know, the short-term rentals have provided a lot of additional revenue. For 2 years from now, we'll have a new real estate assessment, and we all know what property values are doing, so that should help somewhat. But we'll also look on the expense side and see if there's opportunities to make reductions, or at least to stay flat, so that as revenues increase and expenses stay flat, that we'll make up that difference that is a structural deficit right now.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, I think there are some lessons learned from the pandemic on cost cutting, et cetera. So the other questions I have are for Director Guile, Deputy Manager Guile, not in order of priority. Grant pursuits, what percent of your time is spent on pursuing grants for the work that you do?
So when you say pursuing grants, do you mean looking for them exclusively or also writing, reporting, all of it?
Well, all of the above, actually. That's why I ask. Yeah, there's writing for them and looking, getting. Yeah, and a lot of your work relies on grants from what I understand. or do they?
Well, some of the projects that get initiated are grant related. So, I mean, when you really start to think about when I'm working with outside groups, that come to us to say we could pursue a grant if the city would partner with us, it starts to go up a little bit. I would say it's about, because then managing the programs under the grants too, you have to think about that as well. Probably around 20%.
Yeah.
And the time spent looking for them is not enough time, I would say, that part of it.
Right.
Just because of work demands.
Right. Okay.
But once you get into a grant, you have it, that consumes a lot of time as well, because you have to manage it, report against it.
Okay. I didn't see listed, what is the status of the lawsuit against the oil companies?
Oh, okay. So there was just another decision in a related case. So our litigation was stayed pending a determination in a related case, and which is the Baltimore case. And that was also affected by some other related cases. So in the Baltimore case, the issue was sent back, the case was sent back to the state court, and that's where you want it to be because the laws are more favorable than in the federal courts. And this has happened again and again and again in every state. That's the defendants always try to remove to federal court, and then they don't get a favorable ruling, and then they appeal it to that state's next court, and it keeps getting remanded back to state court. So now that in the Baltimore case that there's been a remand back to state court, we're waiting to see what our judge, our circuit court judge, will decide to proceed with the case or wait to see what the next step will be in the Baltimore case. So it's starting to move into the real guts of the litigation rather than the procedural part.
So if you were gambling,
Oh, no.
no odds there given, right? And two more. Who manages the progress and, more importantly, the projection on the MS4 projects?
So the Department of Public Works has the main responsibility for doing that.
Okay. And then what is your strategy for increasing the tree canopy?
So one was the Replant Annapolis program. We can engage community members to help us with that. There's a new group, they're dubbing themselves Weed Warriors, and that's an outside resident group that's forming, and they're working, just working with the city to get permissions to remove the English ivy that destroys trees, because you can plant, if they're killed, you're taking down large amounts of tree canopy, and you can replant with smaller trees, but you're not really replacing, and that takes a long, long time to build that new canopy. So they're helping supplement what the city forester is trying to get done, because he has no budget for English ivy removal, and the Department of Public Works doesn't do that. And Rec and Parks for their trees doesn't really get into English ivy removal. So we're working to help facilitate this volunteer group to work on city property, particularly in parks, and their first focus was going to be Truxton Park, and that's a big project to help preserve trees. And then I had asked the city forester to come up with a tree strategy plan so we can see where we need to go and how many trees we need to plant every year, what kind of budget he needs in order to meet our 50% by 2036 tree canopy goal.
That would be under Department of Planning and Zoning?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's something we'll need to look at and
right. And his budget currently, there's just one person doing this work. He does the maintenance work, tree planting, tree replacement, deals with requests for removals, requirements for replacements when removals do occur, and when the ones that aren't permitted occur, he has to respond to those. And he has a pretty limited budget, and he's pretty maxed out right now.
Okay. Well, thank you, and thank you, Felicia, for working on revised legislation that's going to make things run smoother. So I'll pass to Alderwoman Finlayson.
Sure, thank you. Talking about trees, what is our tree canopy today?
Our tree canopy is around, I have to have Brian recalculate it because he said it depends on what he uses. It's kind of around 38 to 39%, and we're trying to get to 40%. It's hard to move, and that sounds like we're really close, but it's hard to find places to plant trees in the city.
The LGAG, Local Government Advisory Committee, on which I serve, just did a flyover and measured everyone's tree canopy. So I don't know what it is, but you can get our exact tree canopy, not one that we've determined, but one that's recognized, determined by the state. So I think we should have that number so that we know where we are going. Trying to keep my questions in order. How far, well, first of all, let me say, the city has been very progressive in requiring, such as plastic bags, eliminating plastic bags and straws and other things. So how much have we improved? You know, when we banned plastic bags, which was on our plate 15 years ago, we haven't banned it, but there's been a push to use reusable or paper bags instead of an actual ban. How much have we actually improved with all of the efforts that you outlined?
So without a plastic bag ban, we haven't measured, you know, what people are doing right now. So we could measure, if we had a plastic bag ban, we could see where we are now, and then where we would go, but we don't have one yet. So we don't have that information about people's behavior right now.
On page 17, all of your performance measures, you know, they all sound great, but we have nothing to measure them to. You know, could we get some numbers to match some of the things that we're doing?
Yeah, we do have numbers from the No Butts in the Bay program. We know how much weight was collected out of those receptacles. And let's say in the composting, we know how much was diverted, how many pounds were diverted from the landfill. And we do know, and Brian, you know, does have the numbers on how many trees we planted every year.
I think having that data and being able to share it is important, so the community can actually see what you're doing, what we're doing as a city. You know, to just say that we want to increase our tree canopy, but increase it from what to what? Where are we? How much work do we have to do?
Right.
So if you could help us with that, that would be great.
And we do know the number of projects that we have in the ground, in design, in construction, as far as restoration projects. We know how many EV chargers we have in already constructed, in design, et cetera.
And that's the kind of thing we need, I think we need. And I'm just one person, but how many, you mentioned how many EVs we have now, and I know a few of them, but most residents don't even know what those things are when they see them. So, you know, as part of your campaign, and you mentioned a couple times doing like brochures and stuff like that, so that to share exactly, again, I'm repeating myself, what we're doing, so that they can get on board with what we're doing and support it. Grant request. I remember many years ago, our environmental groups were seeking grants and getting them, but they never told us that they needed a match until after they received the grant. So you mentioned a lot of grant funding. Any of those that require matches that we should be aware of?
So many of the HOAs, when they can meet their match through in-kind, so through their staff services. That's how they usually match what they need. The city does the same thing. When we have a grant, we figure out, you know, how much in city staff services. That's how we meet our match.
So you are staying on top of that when they apply for these grants?
Yeah, we always look at whether we can meet the match or not. That's a big part of whether we apply for a grant.
Great, thank you. Page 18, fleet conversion.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So converting our cars that we use in our city fleet to electric vehicles. So the ones that we use to go to meetings, for our people that do inspections. You know, some Public Works has a number of cars, and other departments do as well. So to convert those cars over as they age out.
So you're really talking about replacing
them,
not
exactly.
Converting.
Not
them
yes,
into
but replacement is probably a better word for
That's
it.
what I thought you meant, but I had to check.
Yes.
Because it's like, is there a new device that you come up with that can change existing?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Are the items, Mr. Gerald, on page 20 in the mayor's budget? And that should be the last question,
Yes.
but sorry.
Yes, they are. They all
These are
are.
all in the budget?
Yes.
Okay, no enhancements?
No.
Okay.
As you
Going
can
back-
imagine, I have a little bit of control over enhancements, so.
The Office of Community Caring, it's always going to be the Office of Community Caring, sorry. When does that become official? And I guess this is more a question for Mr. Gerald. So I see Ms. Gutierrez has joined us, has been sitting here the whole time. So when is she?
It's with the passage of the budget, so we need you all to approve this, that it moves, the funding moves over, and so it'll be July 1st if the budget's approved as proposed.
Okay, so the increase in salary line will be to create the office. It is an office, right?
It's an office. It's an office, similar to MIT and HR and the other offices. Yeah.
Okay, so it is an office, and as soon as we pass the budget. Okay. Impervious surfaces, going back to Ms. Giles for a moment. I've often wondered why we don't make that a requirement of all projects going forward.
Well,
I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong. Pervious surface, not impervious.
Yeah, I understand what you're going for. So we do, every single project that goes in, we look at building impervious surfaces, and including city projects. For example, we looked where we could and put pervious surfaces in at Hillman Garage and at the Public Works facility. Our contractors, when they did their soil evaluations, found, unfortunately, in both locations, that the soils were not conducive to put in like a pervious paver type of, because they're compacted, dense soils, and it doesn't allow percolation into the soil. So it could even cause more erosion if it sheets out and goes a different way. But we do look at that everywhere, wherever we can put them in. For example, when we were looking at different options for Main Street, when we finally re-brick Main Street, we're trying to identify areas that would allow pervious bricks to go in. Maybe it wouldn't work on the roadway, the main roadway, because of heavy trucks, but our alleyways could have them. Certain areas along the side of the street could have pervious pavers. So we look for that in every project, including private projects. We would encourage that. There's another example. We just, with the purchase on Cathedral Street, the two lots behind, I think it's 115 and 113, part of the condition of selling that property to the owner of the building was that they put in pervious pavers there, and they are doing that.
Mm-hmm. Well, if there's an opportunity to find grant funding to put in pervious surfaces on our basketball courts, I visited, and I think it was in Harrisburg, several sites. And I have always been most impressed with the basketball court that was a pervious surface. And the mayor then, Mayor Gray, was on our committee and poured a bottle of water on the basketball court, and it disappeared. Of course, underneath, they had the appropriate trenches that took it to a, like a holding tank kind of thing before it was dispersed out into, so there is more work to be done to that. But if you find funding for this, I have a site for you.
Okay.
This is all getting back to my ward, by the way. I have a site for you. So, for a basketball court. That answers all of my questions. Thank you all. Thank you, Felicia. I can't say thank you enough. You're awesome. You handle everything superbly. And so I appreciate you. And Ms. Lee, thank you. And this time next year, we'll have a different department office in front of us. So thank you all. And Mr. Gerald can't thank you enough. And Ms. Scout, everyone, thank you.
Thank you. And just if you could provide those measurements by, the middle of the week. We're going to be starting and ending our deliberations by Thursday, so thanks. Alderwoman O'Neill.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I do have a couple of questions. Going back to the street and parks discussion, you mentioned needing signage because people don't know where they are. Do we currently have a map of the street and parks or something available that we could post on the website for?
We do. I believe Mitchell may have posted them. I'll have to double check on that. But we do have a map of where street and parks are.
Great. That would be something great to tout as people are always looking for places to go and be outside. I get that question quite a bit. The compost program is now permanently has the drop-off location. Is that correct? At Truxton Park?
Yes. Yes. That's in the skate park parking lot near the trailhead.
Great. And not being part of the pilot, were we supplying folks with bins to carry there, or is that something that each individual?
So for the drop-off location, we were not. That was for the individuals to bring their own, containers, compostable plastic bags, et cetera, to that location. The pilot program that the city ran, so that the one in the drop-off location for the first 6 months was run by Annapolis Green with a grant that they obtained, and they just had to work with us on a location and logistics. And then the city is now taking that over, that site over as a permanent program. The Hunt Meadows curbside project was a pilot program run by the city, and we worked with our contractor, Annapolis Compost, and Annapolis Compost provided the bins for that pilot program.
Okay. And what is the status of that pilot program? Is it
so it ran for 6 months, from October of last year through March of this year. So that's over. And if people want to continue with curbside composting, they have to do that through a private contractor like Annapolis Compost at this time. Okay. And the city is still examining whether it's feasible for us to have our own curbside collection process system throughout the whole city.
And we discontinued the curbside because it wasn't very successful, which is shocking to me because I've been working for a number of years to try and get that in place. And I thought that people would come beating down our door to try to be involved with that included. And it just didn't happen. So right now we're doing a survey to try to determine why people didn't participate in that. We provide the containers, we picked up the containers, and just very few people were interested in participating. So again, that was a big shock to me because I thought people would really would want to participate in it, and they just didn't. So
they had 80 out of 300 households in Hunt Meadows participate. But of those households that participated, 40% of them continued with composting who had not been a customer of Annapolis Compost previously. So there was progress. They just not as much participation as might have been expected.
Okay. I know in my ward there's been a lot of questions about it, so maybe we can try a pilot in a different space.
Yep. That's part of the survey to figure out where people are most interested.
Okay. Thank you. My next question is about the conservation easements and identifying some of the places. And how are we going about doing that? Is it through public suggestions or?
Part of the information was obtained and is still being obtained through public suggestions. The 2040 Annapolis Ahead website and the landing page has a tab for input, and you can go into the comp plan and provide comments on different sections. You could comment on conservation easements or where you think they should go, comment on anything, any component of it still. I know that Planning and Zoning is trying to get a draft out for public review by this fall, early this fall. And then the Conservancy Board on their own, they've always had their eye on certain properties, but then when Eric Lashinsky spoke with them, and the mayor also came to talk to them at one point about his plans for trails and connected green spaces, they started focusing their efforts on identifying pockets of land that could work into the bike system, to work into a greenway system, to connect parks better, and they started targeting it that way. And they provided a map of their target proposed properties to Planning and Zoning.
Great. Good to know that there's a place where we can push people to go to also make suggestions. Great. And then my next and last question is actually a question for Ms. Lee. I know that in your work, you've been, I'm guessing, satellite offices. You mentioned in Robinwood and in Harbor House. How do you feel that's working? Is it something that will continue to keep offices there? Will you have some rotating offices?
So for right now, I believe it is working. The only thing I would love is that we had more staff in both offices. That's the one thing I would love for the future. I would love to rotate in different neighborhoods as well. So, as we grow in budget and staff, I would love to cover more neighborhoods, such as Clay Street, Stanton Center, of course. We did start off at the Stanton Center, and I would love to return one day because that was a great area to be in. I know also with other neighborhoods as well. So that's something we would like to do.
So we are looking at an office in Clay Street that potentially we may be able to use as the Masonic Temple that's being renovated. So we're trying to work out a deal to be able to use that. We also need to get police more into because those were set up as substations both in Robinwood and Harbor House. So we need to get police more into those, and Chief Jackson understands that and recognizes it and is certainly going to work on it. He and Major Branford are going to personally spend a day or two in those from time to time. But we need to get police more into that. And as we get more police, then things will be better from a community service perspective in those as well.
Great, thank you. And I actually lied, I thought that was my last question, but I have one last question, and this one is for Ms. Nolan. I know that you've done a lot of changes over the years and helping to make the calendar. You and I've talked at different points in time, the city calendar. A big issue came about when we had the MLK parade and the film festival going on at the same time, and people not being able to get from one movie location to another movie location because they couldn't cross the parade line. Are we working, or is your office working on listening to sirens? Perhaps taking a look at some of the bigger events and making sure that we don't bypass, pack those into the same day.
We definitely did not anticipate what happened that day. There was there was a lot of other things going on that day as well. But I've already, at least for next year, looked at they're on different weekends. So that was good. But we'll make sure that I've been here for 8.5 years. That's the first time something like that's happened. So yeah. We'll make sure that it doesn't happen again.
No, I get that. And I appreciate all the work you are doing in events. I know that for a long, long time, the events and how they're operated and what goes on during major events in our city was a lot of influx, and you've done a lot to corral that in, so appreciate that.
Thank you, yeah. And also, I like Alderwoman Tierney was saying about the legislation that was passed last week. That'll definitely help with stuff as well. So just, it was kind of, some of the things were like learning experience type stuff. So I think it'll definitely help.
Great. Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you. Let me allow the next, at most, 10 minutes for questions from my colleagues, starting with Alderman Arnett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And let me just begin by seconding the comments. I remember that special events were an incredible problem 8.5 years ago, but they have not been since. So we do appreciate that we don't hear from you. It gets taken care of. I want to turn to the slide on page 5, which is a great slide, but it does mislead, I think, severely in that DPW staffing and spending is seriously understated, and there is no slide for transportation and parking, which are huge parts of the city. So while the slide is correctly labeled general fund, I think for overall budget understanding, we really need a slide like this for all funds so that we can see. And I think that you'll see if you have a pie chart like that, police and fire will shrink, public works will go up, but we'll have two other big players in transportation and parks and recs. Now, I know they're not in the general fund, although Public Works is, but still, I think a better chart would be one to look at all funds.
And we can certainly get that. Yeah, and Public Works jumps up to, I think, about 20%.
Yeah.
And that's sort of normal in most cities. Public Works is normally about 20% of the
It would
overall
really be on
budget.
par with police and fire, which
Yeah.
public safety,
Right.
Public Works, that's what you expect from a
Yeah.
municipality. On slide 9, I wanted to comment that I think you undersold one of the very important things that the city manager's office does, and both the director and the deputy, which is you are an incredible buffer and spend a lot of time and maybe stomach lining, buffering between all of the various factions we have in the city. And that's an important function. And I'm thinking really about Parkside Preserve, which I think is a home run. That's why I'm so devastated that Mike Johnson is leaving, because he really came through in spades. But you do a lot of that, and it really is helpful for us on the council, because we're part of the buffering you have to do, but also you're part of the management of all of the different people in the city. So I would really put that down as a big thing that you need to take credit on. I think that on the 9 also, we have the street end parks, and I think it shows up in 12. I think that we're getting a lot of push from our constituents that access to the water, and I'm not even really sure. I thought we were getting a dock, a floating dock at 3rd Street, and now it seems to have gone off the map. But I think that is very important, and in terms of buffering factions, more of those would be less complaints.
I would just like to comment on that, Alderman Arnett.
I'm out of
You just
here.
got elevated.
Don't let that get to your head.
I was having a flashback to my days on the Hill. With regard to that, Eric Lashinsky had just called a meeting with a number of staff in the mayor's office, city manager's office, about a new initiative he has around public access to the water, and it's going to be advertised very soon to the public, where he's going to solicit input from communities and other stakeholder groups, but especially from communities and residents about, there'll be a survey first, but then he'll have a number of kind of listening sessions to find out how people are using street ends, what do they want at street ends, what prevents them from using street end parks, which ones do they use, do they know about them, which ones do they know about, right. So we can start to respond to those kinds of concerns you're hearing as we go forward with providing more opportunities for street and access parks, and also improving what we have and making them more visible.
Thank you. Slide 10, I just want to echo Alderwoman O'Neill's questions and concerns about resource centers. I personally don't think they have lived up to the expectations of the community, but those expectations were that they would be substations for the police, not a resource center. But my expectation was, and it may be fulfilling, is the resource centers would be a place where kids could come, get snacks out of the refrigerator, drinks and so forth. And that may be able to happen without your staff, but I agree, I've always agreed, the Office of Community Caring needs a lot more staff, and we'll get that, but that's one of those hands-on kinds of things that I think we really need to make a high priority and work for. On slide 16, I like the idea that we're talking about our getting our profile. Why won't this move? I can't do slide 16 apparently, but it's the profile of the city staff. And I'd like to know where we are now and what are our goals. I think those are things that we always have to be paying attention to. And my last question is on slide 19, or it's actually related to slide 19. but is also showing up here in OpenGov. I was shocked when I flipped down and saw that you have a $10,596,400 deficit in the city manager's office. It's pretty big. What are you guys doing? And I haven't been able to figure out where the big increase is. 22, you're projected to have a surplus of 1.3 million. In 22, you were budgeted to have a deficit of 5 million, but that's a big change. I don't know that you need to answer it now, but I think the Finance Committee might want to have an answer.
Well, can you point to what you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Looking at OpenGov for the city manager's office, and when you open it, well, you can collapse it. And
You said it had a deficit of $10 million?
Yeah, you look at it, it's showing minus 10,596,405. That revenues are exceeded by expenditures by $10 million. In OpenGov, I mean, maybe,
You're looking at city manager updated. That's what the view is called?
it's whatever city manager, I don't know what it, I'm looking at, well, maybe I am looking at the wrong thing. I'll have to go back and look at that, but that was, maybe I just got to the wrong place, but in any event, that's a big number.
You must be looking at the wrong
Okay.
presentation in
All right. Good.
OpenGov, because.
Well, that's a relief.
Well, just remember that the city manager's office doesn't have any revenues assigned directly to it.
Well, okay,
So the
so I'm-
negative that you see there should be just the amount of their expenses in each division.
I can't tell where I am.
Yeah,
As,
maybe after the meeting, Katie.
Dana said, never mind. Last thing is money for the upbringing. Do we need any?
Katie may be able to walk around and help you after the meeting and make sure you're looking at the correct
I can't
presentation.
figure out what I'm in. Anyway, thank you, and I do appreciate what you do, and I especially appreciate that buffering that you have not taken credit for. It's extremely important for the city to run well.
Alderman Gay? Thank you, Alderman Arnett.
Awesome, thank you very much. I'll try to be quicker than my colleague because I know we're pressed for time. I'm joking. Really quickly, the $20,000 for homeless services, that's for operation, not salary, correct? I think I'm asking David. Operate $20,000 for homeless services. That's under FY23 contracts and service breakdown.
That's right. That's what the contract with the county.
Awesome. I really do think we need to increase that. And I know typically in the past I've got on that, but I think it is because, I've dealt again with a number of constituents where we're on the phone and I've sent some to you where we're trying to find immediate housing and the county is tapped. We can't find hotels or anything.
Yeah,
and so I'd look to.
I think that's actually a grant, Katie. That's a grant that we then pass on, that comes to community services that we pass on to the county. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we can increase the grant, I'd be willing to do that. Really quickly, I'm just running through. Felicia, again, appreciate everything that you've done. You've been helpful in the past, even when we've done small street events in Eastport. Are you working closely with Art in Public Places, I'm assuming, because they do a number of special events?
I work with them with their concert series. They do a summer concert series. And sometimes, like, if they're doing a mural that closes a road, something like that, I'll help with that. In the past, now probably not on that because of what changed in the legislation.
Okay.
But
I was going to say pass the message that we need more diversity in those performances, but I'll pass it to them.
Yeah, they
That's
would.
something that the Alderwoman has mentioned as well often, but.
Talk to Genevieve for sure. That's they do all the booking for that. I just help them with their permits. I don't actually do anything with the concert itself.
I appreciate though everything like I said, you've been helpful to us in the past.
Must be blushing today.
With the again, Aaron, appreciative of that. I've been out door knocking with them in the neighborhood, partnering and pairing for rental assistance, and it was a struggle there for a minute. Mid-COVID, it was hot. We're out knocking doors, but we got it going, and so grateful for that. Assistant city manager role is still listed. I'm assuming it's being advertised. I have 2 quick points on that. One, it was the highest ranking African American that we had within the city, which helped with some of the social services programs that we were hoping to manage. I'm not saying the person was perfect, but it helped facilitate the conversation. So how do you expect to fill that role, and what will the duties be? Understanding also that you have a lot on your plate, and I'm assuming you need some sort of assistant to help with the city manager's reports, etc. So how will that take off?
Yeah, we do expect to fill that. The next time it's filled, we hope that we are able to get the grade bumped up higher, because it will definitely bring in more candidates, the type of candidates that we want. So that's the process that has to happen next. And you all will see that, because that has to be approved by the council. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously things that aren't being done because I just don't have time to do everything. So that includes the monthly reports. So getting input from the departments, just need to get those all put together. I've revamped the format again to try and make it simpler, because I get feedback on that it's just too much information all at once. We're trying to simplify it and just get a bare amount of information from each department, but that's on the to-do list.
That'll be good. And you mentioned raising the salary. I hope not too much. You know how I feel about top heavy, especially with 3. That would be like essentially 3 city managers, including Jackie. I consider you a city manager. At least that's how it was advertised initially. So that would be 3 more support services for you. And let me just, because I've commended everybody here, David, I know me and you sometimes, but you really, really do handle this role so well and with such great temperament. Like I'm envious of how well you manage this without, blowing up sometimes. I'm sure I'm sure at home you're shadow boxing and all of this, but really you've done a great job.
Only the immediate staff sees that side of me, so you all don't see that. So.
2 quick questions. Increase to city dock management. And this will tie into my second question, at plus $35,000. And basically that's contracted out for someone to manage those programs. Because I want to tie it into the community services, which I think we've all mentioned it, which is really important. 2 questions. Did you not find it necessary to do a nationwide search for someone to lead that office? In particularly considering it's something that's so passionate of all of the council here. And we really want to bring in innovative ideas and, shake things up and, make it make it great. Like I share some of the concern, the struggle. I do not want to see the increased presence there, because I think the community just got comfortable with it being a resource center. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing. The messaging is confusing. The services that are provided is often conflicted to the residents. I don't think we have room to grow right now, because the 2 that we have aren't even perfected. And so that I'm very passionate about that. Me and you talk often about this. So what really is the goal for that office? And, outside of the staff, how can we support it? I see they only have $5,000 for contractual services, or $5,000 increase. Is that really enough for supply and demand that the community is asking for?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. So let me start with the national advertisement. So as we were looking across the city and recognizing, because it's nice to always bring somebody from inside the city to those roles. The programs that Laura currently has, the Take Care program, is very similar to what we anticipate the community service is going to be. To me, there's a lot of overlap there. And I've always felt like that program, and I've said it at other meetings, that program eventually needs to transition to community services. So that's what we're doing now. So the Take Care program comes over to community services. So Laura comes with also the Take Care employees, the ones that are grant funded that we currently have, will come over as well to help with those services, because they're doing all outreach. They're trying to outreach to underserved communities to help them get the services that they need. And that's what community services is all about. That's what our vision is for them, is to provide those, or help, not to provide those services, but to be conduit for those services. So in my mind, there was a whole lot of overlap between what they were doing. So we're combining those two functions. I'm concerned that Laura is going to be overworked and have way too much on her plate, because she's still going to be the Hispanic liaison, but also involved with community services. So we're going to monitor that, and if we need to add that Hispanic liaison back in the mayor's office, we may need to do that. Because what I don't want to do is just give her twice as much work as she has right now. My thought is that there's enough overlap that's not going to be twice as much work. It's going to be some increment above what she already has. But we're going to find out as she moves over there and gets settled in and starts doing the job, about how overloaded she is. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the vision is that they provide the conduit to all of the services that are available, and there's a lot of services that are available out there. So they're not necessarily the service provider, other than going around knocking on doors in HACA to try and get people to sign, things like that. It makes sense. But otherwise, they get the call, they talk to people, and they help them, and they follow up with them, but to make sure that they're getting the services that they need.
Okay, Alderman Gay, that one more, or do you have, what do you have left?
I will, you understand how I feel about this, and so that's that.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Could I take liberty and make a recommendation? I keep hearing about the resource centers and the different definitions. It's almost schizophrenic. Could I suggest either a work session, or that being the one topic for a public safety committee, so the council can at least agree on what they are for and who should occupy them?
Yeah, I think so. I think, just to be clear, when HACA approved taking these rental units offline and letting us use it, it was to have a higher police presence. So that's a necessary part of this if we're going to stay in there. We always felt like we could get more benefit out of it than just, well, number one, we don't really have the luxury of having police officers that can just sit in an office all day in these resource centers or substations. So we'd really rather have them out in the street. But they do roll calls there, they have meetings there, they do some of those types of things, but that needs to increase further. But it's a great opportunity to have this service providing office in the neighborhood where the services are required. So that's why we're trying to take advantage of that. Community Services used to have their office in the Stanton Center, but they've moved exclusively to these centers just so we take advantage of those and can make better use of Stanton Center. But certainly we can have that debate, but there's some constraints in place that are going to drive those decisions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Alderwoman Finlayson.
I have to ask two things about staffing. I think I just heard you say that Ms. Gutierrez is going to be heading up the Office of Community Caring and keeping her Hispanic liaison position?
That's correct. And again, and we're going to see if that's too much. We just don't know right now, but it seems like there's a big overlap between the functions of those two, the liaison and the community services. If there's not, and she has two full jobs, that doesn't work.
It absolutely.
But we're going to find out if there's enough of an overlap where she's not totally overwhelmed by trying to do both jobs.
Well, we have an opportunity now.
Well, we don't know yet. She hasn't started doing that yet. We need to learn from her experience when she starts doing the job.
Well, I'm just warning us that we can't give a person two jobs. And so do we need to have, and I contend that we probably do need a Hispanic liaison in addition to, we don't have an African-American liaison. And Ms. Gutierrez took on part of that responsibility.
Well, yeah, we do. So we still have Mr. Ajay. He's still at Atola. He still does that job. He does some other things too that have been added to his portfolio. So yeah, we need to learn and see. And Laura will let us know if this is too much for her, and then we'll circle back and figure out how we reestablish. We're not getting rid of the Hispanic liaison position. We're just not funding it this year. If we need to fund it, then we'll come back and ask the council for additional funding so we can fill that position. The last thing I want to do is to lose her because we're overworking her.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I'm just saying this is an opportunity if we need to put funding for maybe a part-time person or something, but to expect, well, you want to try it out.
We'll monitor and we'll come back with the council. And if you'd like
Okay.
us to report on it after, 3 or 6 months, we can do that.
Okay. My other question has to do with the assistant or the assistant to the city manager. So what are we seeking in this position? The council approved an assistant to the city manager. In some way, through this administration, that evolved into an assistant city manager. So what are we recruiting for?
We're not recruiting presently. What we plan to do is to increase the grade for that position so it becomes an assistant city manager. That's what the job title is now. Whether good or bad or indifferent, somehow it got approved as an assistant city manager, but it was at a lower grade, which was not fair either way to have that job title but the lower grade. So we're trying to correct that by increasing the grade, but we're not advertising it yet. We have no candidates right now, and so we'd like to correct that first, and then we'll find somebody that can fill it.
I can tell you that the council approved the assistant to the city manager, because I sponsored that amendment. And it changed in some way, but that wasn't a council action. So do whatever you need to do. Before we did have an assistant city manager who was an ICMA certified city manager. So I hope that's the direction in which we're moving, because that's what's needed in the city. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Just for clarity, in the budget is an A14 position. What is that? What is that? Is that an assistant manager or?
That would be assistant to level.
Okay.
Yeah,
Assistant to, so
I think
you are happy with what's
the
in?
assistant city manager should be at least an 18, 17 or 18, somewhere in that range.
Okay,
The top is 20.
okay. Okay, so you would anticipate increasing the budget?
Yeah,
Do you-
but we'll have to come to the council to do that.
Okay, just for
to
clarity,
get that
okay.
approved.
Alderwoman Pindle Charles, just if you have a question.
I
know
have several
we're-
questions.
Yeah, I know, we're running late. Are you guys okay out there?
Thank you.
No, okay.
First of all, we kind of glossed over COVID, but I want to get back to that and thank the city manager as well as the Office of Emergency Management for really doing a phenomenal job when it came to that. Those meetings on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday were huge, and couldn't say enough. And want to thank Ms. Nolan for working with the businesses, hearing those conversations and going down and personally talking to those businesses about the nuances, the small things that we may think were small, but needed to be corrected, could have blown up into larger things. So thank you so much, Ms. Nolan, for that. Next question, Ms. Lee, we talked about Annapolis Green a lot from Ms. Giles' standpoint. Do you recall if they requested a grant within that 35, 36 people that you had? I didn't see it on the list of acceptance, but just need to know that.
No, I did not see anything related
Okay.
to that.
Thank you. And the other thing is too, speaking of the city arborist, since we had that accident, I guess it was not within the city limits, but within Annapolis about a week and a half ago, when someone lost their life concerning a tree falling into their home. Are you familiar with that, Ms. Guy? Oh, yeah, it was huge.
Yes.
I think it was a grandfather, grandmother, a child. Several people were injured. I've gotten too many calls to mention in my own ward for the arborists to come out and look at trees. People have really been nervous about that. So just to kind of let you know that when those kinds of accidents happen, you're gonna probably see an uptick in requests for people wanting site visits to look at their trees. So Mr. Bryan has been great But I know he's been overloaded the past week and a half, at least with me, about those fallen trees or trees that look like they're diseased or that sort of thing. So just kind of put that on your radar.
Okay. And so, yeah, that's something that city council should keep on their radar for his maintenance budget.
Right.
Because when he takes down a tree, it can cost, the most expensive one was $5,000 because of where it was located. But they can be quite expensive to take down, the really big ones. And that chews up a big chunk of his budget. Now, he has to do it. You know, he does it when there are a hazardous tree situation, because we don't want something like that to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Some people have really been.
Yeah, and also part of maintenance is not just taking down the trees, but taking down the limbs. Because sometimes you can remove a limb and save the tree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Next question is. Oh, that was my next question. And the next question is, Ms. Lee, the one thing, you left something very important out of your presentation, your new website. Can you give us a 25-cent tour about the link to the city and your website?
No, thank you for the reminder. So yes, our Office of Community Services website is annapolis.gov/communities. And it's a website that details our office as well as myself and Erica Griswold's, our particular job roles. Also has our office hours and links to different city resources. We also have a sign-up form for the Food Fridays program, which we've gotten several requests for that we pass along then to Alderman O'Neill and her organization of Food Fridays. And we also do receive requests for assistance through the website as well. Ina Young has been just wonderful in getting that website up and going and helping us along. She does help to maintain it. And we also do add additional city resources or events to the website as well. And that's about it.
And thank the Office of Emergency Management Director Simmons for stepping in the gap during this period of time. Want to thank also, as I always do, your office, Mr. Gerald, regarding the tornado. That was extremely helpful with the Office of Community Services and every other department within the city and county agencies and private and nonprofits. That was huge for my residents. And I think we've just about wrapped up. I think we've wrapped up everybody, households, renters, homeowners. I think we've completed that task. We got a few more things to tie up, but I'm really, really grateful for all the hard work that everyone put into that. Thank you so much. Accidents. Alderman Gay had mentioned about more diversity in performances. You've been to Chambers Park, Alderman Gay. You've come to the Chambers Park concerts.
I realize that, and I think they do a great job. I'm talking about for the demographic age, probably 18 through 30. They need something to do, and they need the arts and public place to cater towards them. But Chambers Park is great, though. I love that event as well.
Yeah, certainly reach out to the Greater Parole Community Association if you have some performances that you think should be included. That would be great. And I think that's all. Thank you.
Alrighty, okay, well, thank you, Dwan.
No, really quickly, I don't want your point to be taken lightly earlier. We really need a work session on this community. I'm calling it caring services too, because that's what we started it with.
Yeah.
Because I
agree. I think we need better policy definition and also better definition of what the roles and responsibilities are going to be.
Because we're about to pass a budget and we really don't even know what we're passing it for as it relates to operations.
We'll get that set up.
I mean,
Yeah, I've heard Chief Jackson call it something totally different, so yeah, okay. Felicia, would Lily like a ball or a Frisbee? Okay, so you guys get Frisbees. I'm not throwing it though. Jackie and David.
Right, hold your water bottles.
Oops, that's for Lily.
Whoa!
Whoa! Laura, you're going to get a special gift later. I'm running low on department heads. All right. Thank you. We're going to keep going. All righty. This is good. This keeps me away from my email where I'm getting these. What are those funny signs in our neighborhood? We're implementing, we're putting signs up about Park Mobile in District 1 and District 2. Yeah. Anyway, so we now have the mayor's office.
Who's this at the table?
We have a Mirage.
Susie.
So if you could introduce yourselves, and as you know, your presentation is uninterrupted, followed by questions. We're running a little late, but it's up to you how long you want to be here. So take your time.
Thank you. There we go. Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, my presentation will be fairly short today. I've just got a few slides to go through to outline our work and outcomes in 2022 and set the context for the budget changes in 2023.
Oh, could you speak up a little bit?
I will, and I'll come in closer.
There you go.
And because I'm still new in the role, Susie Smith has graciously come in today to help me on the learning curve and help answer your questions at the end. So we do have a slide presentation, which I believe should be coming up.
Mm-hmm. What do we have to hear? I'm sorry to be.
We don't have it.
Okay, that was, I thought, went through to the studio this morning, so I will apologise for that. That was the information I was given, so.
No, we were just looking at electronically if we had it on Granicus or if it was emailed to us.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be loaded for you this morning. So that's, again, here we go, a learning curve for me to just be thoroughly clear about what I'm asking for and how it's being done. I'm juggling lots of new devices at the moment as well, so yeah, all of the systems and operations are an issue. Look, it's pretty straightforward, and I can talk you through what we were planning to do. So I hope you'll bear with me. I'm just going to start with a fairly high-level overview, which was a very useful exercise for me in trying to articulate clearly how we see the role of the Mayor's Office and what we do. And then we'll talk about some of our achievements and the things we've delivered, go to the budget changes, as I mentioned. So the Mayor's Office primary role is to support the Mayor as Chief Executive of the City and help him execute his policies and vision, in particular through community liaison, public engagement and events, and providing public information and communication. The Mayor's Office also acts as a key point of contact for residents with service needs and questions that they're unable to progress through other means. We also work with the City Manager and City Departments to connect residents to services and ensure the Mayor's vision and policies are reflected in City operations. And we also provide liaison communication and administration services to the City Council, City Departments and City Boards and Commissions. The Mayor's vision has a strong emphasis on diversity and inclusion through outreach and services, particularly to underserved residents and communities, and engagement programs and events that connect people across the city, celebrate our diversity, and help all residents know that they're valued and have a voice. The Mayor's vision also drives initiatives for business investment, employment, and a strong city economy. And the third branch of that is positioning Annapolis to meet the challenges of the 21st century through infrastructure investment that addresses community needs and the impact of climate change, provides alternative, accessible and energy-efficient transportation, increases access, equity and connectivity across the city, and especially to the water, which is such a defining element of our history and life as a community. 2022 has been a transition year as we move from pandemic crisis response to COVID normal, and that has seen a gradual return to in-person service delivery and the resumption of events and engagement programs. However, the pandemic has also led to some significant changes in the way we work, which has placed new demands, and we suspect ongoing demands, on our services and resources. Throughout the transition, the Mayor's Office continues to deliver outreach and services to residents through our constituent services and programs such as the Naptown Anti-Dope Movement, Take Care, the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion or LEAD program, just to name a few, as well as the provision of timely and tailored public information and public engagement events and programs. Much of our work is around relationships and outreach into the community, so we haven't had quantitative measures of performance so much as qualitative ways of sort of determining how we're adding value. But I think one of the big and concrete measures we can point to in 2022 is the Mayor's historic re-election in November, the first Mayor in 70 years to win re-election with majority in his own right. And very, very significantly along with that, the election of council members who share and have similar vision and values. The endorsement of our Mayor and Council speaks powerfully to the way residents have connected with and benefited from our programs and the inclusive and progressive vision that we're working for. And if I can just then quickly mention some of the concrete things that we have delivered and the programs, the highlight programs we've been working on through 2022, just to sort of give a sense of what is underpinning all of that. We deliver one of our critical and time essential requirements is the delivery of accurate public information for our residents. In 2022, we developed and executed a range of complex communication plans to support significant issues and projects, including COVID transition, where delivery of timely, accurate information as situations evolved was critical to supporting residents and helping them to access information and services. We delivered information to support election 2022 and ensure residents understood the processes and were able to participate. We've delivered a range of communication and information to support weather and emergency events throughout the year in order to help keep residents safe and able to access services and support through winter storms, flooding, and last year's tornado. We've also delivered a range of presentations and products to a vast array of stakeholders, local and beyond, to let the world know that Annapolis is open for business and promote our city as a business-friendly destination city. Other major projects that we've supported with information and communication are the rebuild of Hillman Garage, the City Dock Project, Choice Neighbourhoods, which is a HUD-sponsored program. We have a range of construction, as well as all our regular construction improvement projects, events and parades. Our products, in addition to all of that on the communication side, our products, we've also delivered more than 400 citations, over 40 proclamations, over 60 press releases, and hundreds of hours of video, including City Council and committee meetings and virtual boards and commissions. On the public engagement side, some key highlights here include our State of Black Annapolis program, which was a Black History conversation series in 3 parts that was delivered in person and live streamed for Black History Month, and which I understand had significant engagement and interest. This year we've had a new NAM coordinator working on the ground in communities, Tiona Hayes, and she is proving highly effective and impactful in engaging members of the community in real time where they live. A new program that is being introduced is Fuerza Latina, which is our Latina Empowerment Program, and that initiative is designed to deliver inspiration and know your rights information through videos and forums. And of course, there's the Take Care program, which has not only built a network of community outreach, it's delivered more than 1,500 needs assessment surveys, 300 flu shots, over 18,000 masks have been distributed, almost 900 COVID testing kits have been delivered, over 230 vaccine clinics have been supported, and more than 9,200 COVID vaccinations have been provided. Other events to highlight are the Martin Luther King Diaspora Festival, the Annapolis Songwriters Festival, the recently concluded Smart Cities competition in conjunction with Morgan State University. And on our constituent service side, we have dealt with around 430 resident cases throughout the course of the year, so something like at least 10 a week. And we've managed to reduce vacancy rates on boards and commissions in the last year. So I hope all of that provides some context for our budget proposal for 2023. And on that, I would just like to highlight sort of the key changes that are in our budget for the year ahead. Beginning with salary and benefits, and some of this has already been touched on. We have one contract staff member who will be moving over to the exempt service. I understand that the only additional cost to that will be VEBA benefits if the staff member decides to take that up. I'll be taking on health benefits as the chief of staff, which Susie didn't need to do. And then, of course, there is position realignment as Take Care program moves across to the community services in the city manager's office. With contract services, we are seeing an additional $20,000 for the Choice Neighbourhoods program, which I understand is funded through a grant. We have built in some additional capacity to around $14,000 into our special projects budget. And that's really designed to allow us to respond to emerging issues. It's pretty clear over the last couple of years, particularly with the ongoing sort of changing nature of the pandemic, that we do need capacity to respond in the moment. So that's a buffer for us to be able to do that in the year ahead. We also have $8,300 for an upgrade to Granicus. It's actually a plug-in to the Granicus program, and that's designed to help us better manage the administration of city boards and commissions. Currently, we operate from paper records, and that's a vast and complex paper trail, which can be very hard to find the information and respond in a timely way. So this will allow us to capture all of that electronically, and it will ensure we have a record from administration to administration. In addition, we have some general increases to cover annual rises in costs, and some additional service demands relating to Gmail, the phone, and a text program that Laura Gutierrez has initiated, which is proving really effective in getting information to residents in real time. So given how effective that program's been, we're asking for a small budget allocation to cover that and expand that in 2023. So that's really it for the major things in our budget. And with that, I'm very happy to take your questions. Madam Chair, I'm also conscious I didn't follow your instruction at the beginning and properly introduce myself. I'm Kate Pettit. I'm the new the new Chief of Staff for Mayor Gavin Buckley. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have 3 questions, and then I start to fall apart after 1 o'clock, but I'll keep going. The TV studio looks like a substantial add of $190,000, and if so, where is that in the budget? I'm sorry. I hope I'm not throwing you. I'm looking at the mayor's budget book on page 38.
Yes, you're not throwing me at all. Yes. So the studio budget, our contract services budget, has significantly increased in the last 2 years, primarily because of COVID and the need to provide virtual live streaming events so people can access city council meetings and other meetings. This is one way where COVID has really changed the way we work. And even though we are now moving back to in-person events, there's an expectation and a preference we're finding from many of our stakeholders and users that they want the live streaming, they want that virtual opportunity to participate in an ongoing way. So we see it as definitely an ongoing need and possibly a permanent shift for the way we do business. And so that has driven a rise in our contractual services, but it's that additional $20,000 for the Choice Neighbourhoods program that takes us up to the $193,000 figure. And that is covered through a grant from HUD, I believe. I'll be corrected on that by my colleagues if that's incorrect.
Yeah, thank you. And when I was preparing for this meeting, I couldn't help but look at the grants, and I know you didn't really speak to that because you're addressing basically what's in the operational budget, but there's a substantial, there's two substantial grants that I assume are managed out of the mayor's office, and I just wanted to see if you could speak to that. One of them is the state grant. I understand, and I'm looking at page 29 of the mayor's budget. The state grant, which is a LEAD program, it carrying over money that hasn't been spent. There's $526,617 there, and then a health outreach of $125,000. So there's that in the state grant money, and then in the county there's a grant for the No Harm VIP, which is $640,000. So to me, it just looked like a skew thing where you addressed your staff, but yet you have these buckets of money that have to be managed. And I just wanted you to speak to who manages those grants and who are the people assigned to them, et cetera.
Yes. So I'm still learning my way around the detail of the grant administration and what is on the table in 2023. I can speak perhaps a little bit more to the county money, which I believe is being proposed towards No Harm, which is our violence intervention program. And I'm going to ask my finance officer colleagues to correct me if I go astray here. That is a grant we are still in negotiation with the county. And so I have meetings coming up in the next couple of weeks, which will be about ironing out exactly what those arrangements will be and what our agreement is and grant proposal is around the services and we're delivering. But we're currently looking at a very promising model for that delivery. It's a program called Cure Violence, and we're working with the people who've developed that model. It has been applied in other cities and other jurisdictions. So we need to get our head around exactly how it fits with the Annapolis context. We want to make sure it's tailored to Annapolis, and then we need to work with the county to determine how we meet their requirements. So there's some discussion and negotiation to go on with that, but that is the intent of all the parties involved at this stage. I don't know if you'd like to add anything to that, Susie.
Bounce back to yourself.
Yeah.
So that's,
sorry, Madam Chair.
No, I was just going to say it's not an impact to the budget because, what's coming in is going out and all that. I just wanted to make sure that we had a plan for managing that money, but it sounds like you're looking at it very closely.
Yes.
The No Harm VIP, I assume, is the opioid effort, and that's $640,000. Who's managing that money, for lack of a better phrase?
That's actually, the No Harm VIP money is this violence intervention program that I was just talking about. Yes.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's the, I told you I fall apart after one. The LEAD program, that's the state grant.
Yes.
And it's carrying over, but I think we hired somebody for that, if I'm not mistaken. So that's in your staffing. We have proposed of $526,617 for this LEAD program. Could you speak to that and how you work with the APD department on
Yes.
that?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yes, I can speak to that more generally. We have hired a new program manager for LEAD, which is an intervention program for non-violent offenders designed to move them out of the justice system and help them to develop skills and abilities that will, give them other choices. Susie will probably be better able to speak. I'm sorry, Susie, I hope that's okay, to the history of this. It's a program that's been in operation for at least a couple of years, I understand. With that, I might ask Susie to fill in the details.
The LEAD program is a diversion program to keep people, as Kate says, out of the criminal justice system. And the conversations with the police department determine what offenses are eligible for diversion. So you don't have to worry about murderers or, major thieves or any of that being up for diversion. So the program itself was, TOLA made an application to the governor's office. It was accepted. We had a year of working with all the stakeholders, got all their input on what this would work and how they would support it and all the rest of it. That was quite successful. And then we've now had a change in the person in charge of the program itself, who accounts to TOLA. He has the oversight on it. And it's been it literally is a continuing conversation with the police department, negotiations sometimes, because they are anxious about what their role is and what offenses can be diverted. And we haven't, unless we've just recently actually started diverting offenses yet, but we're about to do that. It requires also hiring essentially I can't remember the right term, but a casework by contract. That's part of how the LEAD programs are structured. And I don't know that they have actually they've been doing interviews, that they've actually hired that. But when they hire that firm, or there's some possibility of it being internal, but I don't think it'll end up that way because of what they have to provide. Then it will proceed, and we will be in the program for the next, I think, at least 2 years, 2.5 years. That's what the total amount of money is for.
So there is interface with the police department.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues? Alderman Finlayson. Yeah.
I remember hearing about this grant last year. And I remember that it included the police as a partner. A requirement, I think, that the police be, I think they are to sign off on or be involved intimately.
They are, and I'm remembering what you're talking about. I don't remember exactly what the language was, but essentially that is what's gone forward. The LEAD program doesn't do anything if the police chief or major objects.
Mm-hmm.
And but that is a very collegial process. It's worked very well.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, if I may also add to that. Yes, that's my understanding, Alderman Finlayson, that this is a program that has to be crafted very carefully with the relationships with the police. And I know that is the intent from my discussion with the program manager. I haven't had meetings about this yet in detail on the program, and we'll be doing so. I believe that's our first detail meeting will be next week. So I'm more than happy to take that on notice, but it's my general understanding that that is correct, and I'm more than happy to take on notice and come back to you on some detail about how we see that working.
Well, I think it's important that the mayor's office applies for any number of grants, and successfully so. to be commended for it. But I think it's important that the agencies that are to be included be notified and included upfront and not after the grant is awarded. And I think that speaks to some of the hesitancy that you may be experiencing.
It's my understanding that that relationship and coordination is in place.
Okay. Well, that's
I believe that is the case, and I believe we wouldn't be at this stage of the program if that wasn't the case, because it has such significant legal and other implications. But I will just, as soon as I can, I'll get my head around the details of how that is being managed and the intent going forward, and I'll be more than happy to come back and or fill you in on the detail of that. I apologise, it's not one I've had the meetings on just yet.
My other question has to do with staffing. I see that you have one less person, and I assume that that's Laura as the Hispanic liaison who's being moved to community services.
Yes, that's correct.
So, and I'm sure you just heard me speak to a city manager about the position and not having one person try to do two jobs. So I'm not going to repeat that. I did walk in the parade. I didn't walk, but we all walked in the parade with the new hire, who I think is in the mayor's office, and I can't remember. Does anyone else remember? We were talking to him in the coffee shop.
Richard. He's the
Richard?
lead. He's the lead person.
Yes, Richard is the lead program manager. Yes.
Okay, so is he in, for some reason I can't find my staffing chart.
Page 37.
37?
Yeah.
Thank you. So is he in that org chart already?
I believe he's not reflected in our staffing because this is grant-funded position. That's my understanding.
Okay. Well, good. We met a new person, and I need to be able to find him. So, what of your the breakdown of your contract services? Are those 3 items already in the mayor's budget? Page 38.
Yes. Yes, I believe these items are reflected in the mayor's budget. Yes.
Okay, so you have no enhancements. These are already included in the budget.
No, we don't at this point. No.
Okay.
Kate,
Thank you very much.
I think Kate wants to confirm.
I'm sorry, Ms.
The Granicus software was an enhancement.
My apologies. Yes.
And the position to exempt was an enhancement, and I think there might have been
Moving from
Brian Callahan is being moved from a contract position to an exempt position in the mayor's office.
Okay, so Madam Chair, if I could.
Where's that reflected?
It would be reflected in salaries and benefits, and he's already receiving pension. So it'd be any change that there is in healthcare, but he may already have healthcare as well. So really, it's no change in numbers. It's just a matter of classifying him as exempt rather than putting him under a contract.
Which one of these positions is his on page 37?
Okay, hold on. I believe he may.
If I may, I believe it's the Special Projects and Arts Coordinator.
That's correct.
Which is the grade we have.
Right. They haven't yet graded the position.
Yes, to be advised.
So is that why it's a TBD? Because you're still working on the grading? Okay. After all this time, you would think we'd already know this. Thank you.
Is that it?
I'm done.
Oh, okay. Alderwoman O'Neill.
Sheila asked my question, so.
Yeah, the breakdown.
I'm good, thank you.
Great minds.
Great. All right, thanks. Alderman Arnett?
Thank you. Can we get a copy of your remarks, your slides?
Absolutely,
Thank
yes.
you.
Send it to all of us, please.
Alderman Gay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just quickly, if you go to OpenGov with me, I just need a better understanding of the contract services. It says proposed $197,200. Am I reading correctly that $190,000 of that will be directly from the TV studio, or?
My understanding is yes, that is right. Most of that will be directly studio costs, although I'm not sure that it is all of that. I think there's a small component for other costs. And so the baseline increase in studio contract services over the last couple of years has been driven by COVID, but there's an additional $20,000 reflected in that $193,000 figure that is a specific project for this Choice Neighbourhoods initiative that's been funded by a grant.
And where were where's the breakdown of NAM and the other programs or services that are run? I'm not seeing that in the
It's
contract
in your
services.
grant, in your budget book, on your
Okay.
grant schedule. I
Yeah.
think it's like the page in the 20s.
No. So I see, all right, so I'm on page 31 where it says, okay, maybe I should go back to, for grants directly from us. Because all I'm seeing from the mayor's office is no harm, which is not NAM. Where's NAM located at in the budget?
NAM is, I believe, is funded primarily through the Office of Emergency Management. We have a small component in the Mayor's Office budget that we cover.
That can't be the $6,000 can't be it. That's all that's budgeted for the it says 6,000 if I'm reading correctly?
No.
Yeah.
640, I thought.
No, you all are mixing up programs. No Harm VIP is a program that focuses on violence interruption programming. NAM, Naptown Anti-Dope movements focuses on substance use. So what I'm seeing is the substance use is only $6,000. Am I reading that correctly?
Where are you, Alderman
I'm on
Gay?
page 31, Madam Chair.
You're correct in that that is the allocation within the Mayor's Office, but that is not the full NAM budget because there is $25,000 for NAM in the Office of Emergency Management budget, which administers that funding.
I'm not seeing that, the 25,000.
I don't have the Office of Emergency Management breakdown in front of me, but I have seen that breakdown. Perhaps our
Page 31 of the budget book is a breakdown.
It's a grant to OEM too.
Yeah, so OEM gets the 35,000.
I think they get more than
No, I'm
that,
not
but
either.
it's from a county allocate, I mean, they're getting the money and it's passing through them to the mayor's office for Tiana.
And so I'm assuming that I'll check with Kevin then, because I remember he did mention that there would be additional funds to the tune of $70,000 that they were requesting, I believe.
That's right.
And so just a better breakdown and explanation of it, because as it's written right now, only $6,000 would be given to substance abuse from the mayor's office.
Alderman Gay, we don't see that.
That's on page 31. If you
Yeah,
go
I'm
to
there. We're
Office
there.
of Emergency Management, it says OIT and then it says mayor.
Yes. So as I understand it, we have budgeted within the Mayor's Office for support costs for NAM, but the majority, $25,000, comes through OEM that funds the program and funds the staff.
I'd really like to see that. Thank you, Jody. I think you may be showing me. And I only ask because I've worked well with this organization, and I know sometimes that we'll get to December and they're out of money. And it's like, well, what's the purpose of us trying to combat substance abuse in our communities if we're going to sell ourselves short every time? So that's why I think it was important just to note that.
All I was going to say is you're calling it NAM, but I don't see anything on it that's NAM. So you're talking about the OIT, the opioid intervention. Okay, the mayor's piece is there and the other three pieces are controlled by OEM.
Yeah, so I was.
So you're saying 35,000 total is not enough?
No, it's 6,000, correct? So it's proposed, OIT, mayor, go all the way over at $6,000 of the 35,000.
Right, 6 of the 35.
Yeah, and my question was that all that was budgeted? And I think she said there's 25,000 that's in the, an additional 25,000 that's in Office of Emergency Management that will be some way, shape, or form cycled through to the mayor's office.
right.
So we'll follow that. The mayor's office no harm VIP program, which is violence and interruption. Again, we gotta make clear distinction between the two because that's gotten confused often. The $640,000 that is proposed here has not been approved by the county, correct?
Correct. But there is an in-principle agreement to take this forward, and there are meetings coming up over the next couple of weeks where we're going to clarify exactly how that arrangement can be locked in.
Okay, so will there still be a year trial with the $25,000? Or are you saying that the county in their budget for the next fiscal year, they without doubt will receive this $640,000 to go to violence interruption?
We have no document.
The amount of money on the table through the grant for no harm is that $640,000, I believe. Again, I will have to take it on notice to get more detailed information for you, exactly how we might be planning to break down that figure. Obviously, this is all still new, so I'm learning. I know the broad picture of the intent and where we're up to as we work with the county to define the program, define the measurables.
So
and
if that's not approved, what has the administration put together a plan to fund the violence interruption program?
I can't speak to an alternative arrangement. I don't know if that has actually been factored into our budget planning. Susie, I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
No, because we've been working with there's no alternative plan. We've been working with the county for quite some time. I was in meetings and negotiations, and they're, how do we work it? How do we account for it? All the rest of it in their budgeting process and their granting process.
If I may,
it comes to fruition, just it's every other program gets funded and everything always works its way out, except for these two programs yearly. For some reason, they always run short in the budget, and we got to scrape up money from the city manager, or it shouldn't be. And then lastly, the community service specialist remaining is managing 3 programs, if I'm not mistaken: African American Liaison, the Naptown Anti-Dope Program, and the No Harm VIP program. But they're scheduled at 8:10. How do you manage 3 programs and your schedule is so low?
There's a history around how these programs have evolved, and I don't feel comfortable because I'm not completely across all of that history and where we've stood with our budget and our planning on that in the past. I don't think I can really comment too much just now. Susie may want to comment at this point. If I could just come back to your point about no harm. I mentioned earlier that, just in a comment, that I'm very excited about the model that we're looking at for that program. I think it's got a lot of potential. We need to work out how we can adapt it to Annapolis. But I'm very committed to seeing us try to get this across the line and fully funded so that we can actually
I would agree, because
this.
the fear is if we don't have anything funded for violence interruption, and maybe this is a discussion for public safety, Madam Chair, what will we do? I mean, I think that's kind of where we got ourselves caught up in December, where there was a string of shootings and we had no way to respond at all. Nothing. And so, I mean, it's just like we're going down, the saying, history repeats itself. And so, but I appreciate the time. I definitely...
I didn't mean to cut you off. I wanted to piggyback on what you were talking about. So are you done? Let me take Finance Chair liberty here. I would like to see this. Tomorrow, perhaps, Mr. City Manager, if we could have Kevin Simmons come in and have Tola here as well. We all want the same thing. We want to solve this opioid epidemic. From my read, there's 640 plus 35,000, that's $675,000. And we just want to make sure that the efforts are coordinated. It's the first time I heard that no harm is in two places, sort of. Well, the fact is I don't know, and I think it would be well worth it because, again, everybody's working hard on this, and I don't want anyone to be frustrated on their efforts. So if we could schedule tomorrow after fees and fines or before fees and fines, Kevin Simmons and Tola, and if you're welcome to come just to hash this out. Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, if I could,
Oh,
and I'm not sure if I'm misunderstanding the point of confusion. NAM is our opioid intervention program that is run or administered out of I'm not sure quite the right word here, it's funded through OEM. We run that out of the Mayor's office. And the Mayor's office budgets some additional support money to ensure that program has the the concrete supplies and things that it needs. So that is our opioid intervention program as it relates to the Mayor's office. No Harm is completely separate. That $640,000
Right.
is a violence intervention program. We had a trial last year.
Nothing to do with opioids. Nothing.
No. I mean, obviously these issues have interconnections, and as the programs are delivered on the ground, I'm hoping we can perhaps make the connections so that we're getting information that makes both of those programs effective and working together. I think this is where it's very important in the model that we are looking for, that we're looking at, that we actually make sure it's going to work in the Annapolis
So
context.
maybe I am confused, obviously, because I thought No Harm also, involved, needle distribution and getting people off of addictions.
Madam Chair,
hence the word No Harm.
You're correct. I think and again, this is why it'd be important to have Mr. Dry here because he really brainstormed some of these programs. And you're absolutely correct. The Naptown Anti-Dope has in the past been branded as No Harm.
Yes.
But when the VIP program was created after we had discussion with the Public Safety Committee due to a recent string of crime, it took on the No Harm title for short because people started just associating the two together. I think the best distinction would be VIP, Violence Interruption Programming, is now chasing the $640,000 grant. And I think where I was confused at, and I'm maybe the committee feels the same way, is as it relates to the Naptown Anti-Dope, as is written in the book right now, there is $6,000 for the substance abuse. However, the Office of Emergency Management, as they told us a couple of weeks ago, they are chasing grants and or additional funds. And it would be helpful to just get an understanding of what the estimate of that could be or how it could be used because, as I mentioned, we got into a kind of a sticky place last year with both the financing for substance abuse and violent crime where we could not find funds. And that's why I was requesting the closed session meeting last December, but we eventually pushed it off. And I think the city manager was able to find some dollars, but I don't think we should get down the road again where we are pushing closed sessions to find money to fight any of these issues. And I think that's where the better understanding would be so helpful.
Mr. City Manager, do you think a representative from the Annapolis Police Department should be there?
Madam Chair, at this point, I'm going to make a respectful request that we not have this meeting tomorrow. I think there needs to be a meeting offline to talk about this before we open this up to the public tomorrow. I'm strongly suggesting that. And you and I can talk afterwards about why
I was going to say,
I'm saying this.
What is the venue?
I think this may be a perfect venue after we have some offline discussion first.
Well, I'm just trying to respond to what is
I understand
published.
where you're coming
Yeah,
from,
okay.
but I think we need an offline discussion first before we have an open meeting. Mr. Gerald, does that make sense?
It does, and we maybe can do it later in the week.
Okay.
So we don't postpone it completely, but just do it a day later.
Okay. Okay, yeah, sure.
We all have to be involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just want to be as transparent as possible when the time comes.
I understand totally.
Okay. Alderwoman Finlayson?
Well, we're getting ready to deliberate. And I know that there is a $70,000 amount that is out there that is going to be we're going to have to consider how to fund it if we want these programs to continue. So, I don't know. We need to do it now. We need to do it as soon as possible because this is our last day, supposedly, with departments. So that means that we're going to have to figure out if we're going to fund it, how to do it. I think one of the problems I saw last year also is that we don't have the data. We know these programs by name and we think we know what they do, but we don't have any data to say what they do, how many people they touch, how many successes they had, et cetera. And that's what we need. So I would hope that Mr. Ajayi would come and explain to us those pieces, and Director Simmons would explain how he gets the grants. And, I know 3 departments are included in this $135,000, 4 departments are included in this $135,000 grant or whatever it's called, expenditure. Anyway, so I think it would be beneficial to have them both here with the pieces of information that we need so we can make an intelligent decision.
Yeah.
I mean, you all can have another offline discussion.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned on why it has to be offline. I mean, it's published.
I'm not saying it has to be offline. I think we need to have a chat first before this meeting comes to fruition tomorrow.
Okay, we can talk tonight.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
we can.
Yeah. I think the lines are blurry and the opioid, from a helicopter view, the city of Annapolis is going to get some of this opioid settlement money, and they look at where is that money going. And I heard from the Office of Emergency Management, in that case, it would be earmarked to the Office of Emergency Management. So in their eyes, in the federal eyes or whatever, our Office of Emergency Management manages the opioid effort. So we need to know what part of that is in tandem with the mayor's office. Again, we all want the same thing. The lines are blurry, and we just want everybody to, be recognized for what they do, and the money is spent. And as Alderwoman Finlayson said, if there's more money that we need. But yeah, we'll talk tonight, so we're not, won't be awkward or anything, but I think.
If I could, my suggestions are, as respectful as possible. I don't think there will be any, hostility within us having the conversation in public. I really do think that the Office of Emergency Management does a good job with the substance abuse programs that they run out of the fire, police, and their office. But I think, as you mentioned, some of that on the ground stuff, the needle distribution, exchange, the pop-up events, those are so important.
I've been to them, and they're definitely
when we were at the height of our opioid issue, that was what was really, changing perspective. And it's no longer just the Ward 6 then. If you look at the map, is 648, surprisingly, so this is spreading across the city. So I think the on the ground is so helpful. And I mean that so respectfully to every department.
Well, also in respect, Alderwoman Pendle-Charles, is your concern the police involved, APD? Or
I don't want to get into what my concerns are in public. But I totally agree with Alderman Gay, because when we had that, we had different events. We started in American Legion. We went to Robinwood. We went to Eastport Terrace Harbor House, and they went extremely well. In fact, I was so concerned about the VIP until I went to the school system, my own supervisor in the Office of Equity, and asked for some money, and it fell on deaf ears, unfortunately. But that's how concerned I was about finding some money for this program. But there are some things I don't think that need to be discussed today, right now, until you and I have a discussion first.
Yeah, and I also would ask the city.
I agree with everything everybody's saying.
Okay. So would you like a representative of the police department there tomorrow as well? Or?
Let's talk about that first.
Okay. Well, we'll talk to the city manager so he can relay that.
Certainly.
Madam Chair, may I just come back to one comment and query from Alderwoman Finlayson?
Yes.
Around the reporting. As I understand it, because the bulk of our NAM program is funded through OEM, and they they manage the grant reporting. It's the outcomes are reported as part of their deliverables. So that's my understanding, and I personally will find it very helpful if we all get together and kind of clarify these details as well, because obviously I've got to learn how it's all coordinating together.
Well, it'll be great to have Director Simmons here so he can clarify all of this.
You mentioned 4 departments. Was there anyone
Yes,
else? you-
police, fire, mayor's office, and OEM. I think those are the 4. I could be wrong,
Okay. All right.
but I think there are 4 of them.
Yeah,
This is the second year, I think we got this money. Came from the health department, I believe, initially.
Mhm.
So,
Okay. Any other
thank you.
questions?
Looks like Susie would like to speak. I forgot her last name.
Oh,
Miss Smith, I'm
Miss
sorry.
Smith,
I forgot your
please.
last name for a moment.
That's okay. Alderwoman, you are right that it has gone to several different departments and some, the police department, I believe at the moment is not even receiving any money from this grant. It's been because they had a lot of more money in the years past than they have now from the county. And so it's been kind of putting it out to the Safe Streets program and other stuff like that. And I think I just want to make the case that there's a big difference in what we do in the mayor's, what we all do in the mayor's office, because it's very hands-on, community-oriented, et cetera, and the others are not. So it's an important piece of the city's opioid fight. And let's hope we get a lot of money.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. We all want the same thing. Let's just get in the room and talk about it together. We have a commercial break for a sock watch here. Socks, please, Katie. We like those socks today.
We like our socks every day.
But those are really cool. Anyways, is there any other questions for the mayor's office?
We have to entertain ourselves any way we can.
I know. And I happen to have 2 left here, so, and they can be thrown. I can try to do this.
You do it, yes.
I think these are really colorful and cute, so thank you so much.
Oh, wait till she's looking.
Oh, sorry. They have a mind of their own. They really do.
Thank you, everyone. My dog is driving an Australian.
Oh, there you go. Oh, my God. What a long trip for a dog. Oh, my goodness. Is it in the baggage thing of the plane the whole time? Oh, my.
Yes, they come as cargo. So she's traveling with my husband overnight. Well, land.
So hopefully there's dog medication for that.
I'm coming by Evergreen.
That's hilarious. All righty.
Will she be quarantined when she gets here?
Oh, right.
Not on the US side.
Oh, okay.
On the Australian side, yes, we have to do that back to Australia. But unfortunately, this time we just meet her at the end when she comes to the plane. Yes.
Oh, good.
Susie, it was good seeing you again.
Yes, thank
As
you.
always. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Get those missing slides.
Just electronically or hard
Thank you.
copy would be great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I think we did good. Just for summary, tomorrow we have fees and fines. And then, yeah, we can, anything?
We're gonna take up part of the mayor's office.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Can I entertain a motion to adjourn to our shuttles?
Madam Chair, I'll move to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mike's off.